we're not obsessed with our phones. We're considering banning phones at the beach, right? So people actually can enjoy the ocean. I'm joking, everyone. All right, if you're here to speak under public comments or on a particular item on the agenda, please fill out a request to speak card and turn it into the city clerk. I have some here. The cards are located near the doors at the back of the chambers. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spriggs.
Here.
Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Councilmember West.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bragg.
Here.
Mayor Dedina.
Here. Great, and now it's my pleasure and honor to invite Sergio M. Frost from USN Retired Fleet Reserve Association, Branch 289, President, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance with his colleagues from the Fleet Reserve. Thank you so much for being here.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And by seeing them, it reminded me we're coming up to the holiday season, and FRI does a wonderful, like a lot of our military service branches does, a wonderful holiday Christmas party, and we look forward to that and donating gifts to kids. It's really a great day. Thank you for all the service you do for our community. Any agenda changes?
Mayor and Council, we do have a couple of agenda changes. We would like to remove the consent item 2.3, which is on the Tijuana River Valley emergency notice. The mayor would make a few comments about that. We would like to move item 6.1 to right after the consent. We have a consultant here that's going to talk to you about refunding some bonds, and they are from out of town, so we'd like to move that up on the agenda. And then before you, you have two items of last minute information. The first is, as you know, it's fairly new. I'm going to get better at this. I've received some well-intentioned comments from council members as well as the public for more description on the travel for Mayor Dedina going to Chicago. There was an invitation that came in for all of the mayors, I think, across the nation, including Mayor Dedina, to attend a conference in Chicago. It was a little unclear in the agenda. I apologize for that. We'll certainly improve that in the future. And then we wanted to make sure that there was a comment that was submitted to you in writing regarding an item 5.1 on the agenda having to do with the Chamber of Commerce and the BID that was submitted by Candy Younger. And just wanted to make sure the City Council was aware that you have received those pieces of last minute information. So thank you for that.
That's great. So we would do, just to make sure, we would do item 2.3 at the end of the meeting.
At your discretion. It normally goes to the end unless the chair moves it.
Would you guys like to have it? Yeah, but would you like to have it at the end, or you want to do it at the beginning after? At the end? At the beginning? Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to get consensus from you. Well, we have the consultant here. Why don't we do it after 6.1? Is that okay? Okay. Good. Is there a motion? Please vote. Sorry.
Mayor Dedina, please vote. Mayor Dedina?
I did. There we go. Great. Thank you.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great. Now we have council updates, starting with Councilmember Spriggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few updates. On Sunday, I did something I hadn't done in a long time, which is have a community dialogue before the, without there being an election campaign or anything going on, which is just to get community input on a number of issues that we are dealing with and that the city is dealing with. And I'm happy to say I had a great turnout. About 27, 28 people showed up at Barrels Upstairs, and everything was covered from dog park to parking to marijuana to what we're doing about cross-border pollution. So I was very pleased to have that kind of turnout and that kind of input. I sent a summary to the city manager in case he wants to distribute it to other council members. Last week, we had a League of California Cities webinar, which was sponsored by the Coastal Cities Issues Group. I played a key role in organizing that webinar. It was for all the coastal cities and anyone else in the League of California Cities interested. We had Jen Eckerly, who is the Deputy Director from the California Ocean Protection Council, and she summarized where the Ocean Protection Council is on their preparation of state sea level rise guidelines. And of course, a big issue is how do those guidelines fit in with the recently done Coastal Commission residential sea level rise guidelines. So the comment period will be starting in about 2 or 3 weeks when they issue the first draft. And we had a great set of comments from Imperial Beach on the residential guidelines. Steve Dush was involved in that, and Jim Nakagawa and myself. So I hope we can get together again and do comments on those when they come out in a couple weeks. Let's see. Metro JPA tomorrow. There's nothing really unusual on the calendar for that, and that's about it. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Patton.
Yeah, thank you. A couple items. I think one of the biggest one, I went to firefighter Tyra Moe's farewell gathering last week. And everybody knows Tyra. She's been working in Imperial Beach since 2007. And at this gathering, so many Imperial Beach residents spoke of her professionalism and kindness. And it was person after person after person that would give a case or an instance where Tyra affected their life. And it was great to hear. I've had the pleasure of knowing Tyra, and Tyra's back there. You could wave, Tyra. I've had the pleasure of, yes, definitely, indeed. I've had the pleasure of knowing Tyra since 2007 and her whole career, and what she's done for Imperial Beach and for the firefighters, for the public, from CPR, from classes, from helping people on her own time. She's won many awards, and she's leaving us. And we couldn't ask for a better person to work in Imperial Beach as a firefighter or just as a person. She's moving. She's starting a cattle ranch. And what I told Tyra at her farewell gathering was people that leave Imperial Beach, they generally come back. And so she'll be back. And hopefully when the cattle ranch is successful running itself, she'll come back and help us out in Imperial Beach, because we could always use a person like Tyra. So Tyra, please stand. Let's give her a big hand, guys. Thank you for your service, and you'll be back. Hopefully, at least we could have lunch or something. I walked through a Triangle Park recently, and that's really coming along. If you haven't seen it yet, Triangle Park is where 7th is, where it kind of merges into Palm Avenue, or old Palm Avenue, and it's going to be completely refigured with some walkways, new trees, and just really user friendly. And that's coming along nicely. And unfortunately, right now, well, in 50 minutes, my son, who goes to Mar Vista High School, his water polo team is playing in Coronado in CIF. And I want to just shout out to Mar Vista water polo team and wish them luck.
Who are they
Thank
playing?
you.
Who are they playing?
They're playing San Diego.
Okay.
And they're going to beat them. That's what I heard. Thank you.
You're a good dad, and I know it's painful for you not to be there, so we appreciate it. Yeah, it's a big deal missing those games. So thanks for being here, Bobby. Mark.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, great week. Busy since the last council. I think I do want to say one thing to Tyra. I think I am honored to have the first female firefighter to graduate and be a part of us, and you are a true inspiration to. I have a daughter, and I would love for her to grow up like you. So thank you very much. So on the 25th, October 25th, I went and spoke at one of the South County Boy Scout troops and had a great time speaking to all these. There was it was tigers and cubs and weebelows and we were talking about civic duty and civic pride. And these kids were very inquisitive, to say the least. It kept me there for an hour and a half, just asking question after question after question. But it was great because at the end of it, I was able to. This was a civic day, and they have their patch is a citizenship patch, and actually I was able to award 2 Webelos their citizen pat for that day. So it was a fun 25th. I loved it, and anytime I can go talk to a bunch of scouts, because my son was an Eagle Scout, it means a lot to me. So it was great. On the 28th, I know that saw the mayor. We did a little bit of thrills and chills and thrills with the 2nd annual IB Thrills and Chills at the park at Portwood Plaza. I was able to judge the pumpkin carving, and I really want to thank IB Beautiful for donating all of the pumpkins that were carved for our kids. So the kids actually had all the carving stuff there, so they were able to pick out their own pumpkin, go carve it, and they had some amazing. And I actually saw the best pumpkin I thought was carved was done by one of our local artists, though, IB Dad. But I had to award it to somebody else because she had the pumpkin had the innards as hair. It was kind of like a Aquarius looking pumpkin-esque. So it was a great time. And also saw the San Diego sheriffs were there handing out candy, and it's a great day. And then on Monday, I participated in on a group with they were talking about homelessness and Hepe in San Diego, and I was there with Councilmember Zapp and Ward and Kate and Councilmember Councilmember Schumacher from Carlsbad, really looking at the homelessness issue and how it's affecting us and how they're all interlinked between the housing crisis that we have and the cost of housing and how it's really forcing out a lot of homeless in our community. So really interesting and a lively discussion, and it was supposed to be a breakfast, but none of us ate because we were talking the entire time. So just participated today, found out we're going to be kicking off our Clean Cities Initiative next year. First cleanup is going to be again at Rose Teeple Park. Great event on Martin Luther King Day. So come on out. It was a great success last year. Had over 200 people at the event. We cleaned up a couple $1,000 worth of trash and over on 9th Street. So Rose Teeples means a lot to our city, and the park is a kind of a little gem inside our area on the northeast side. So looking forward to that. A couple things coming up on Friday. I recommend that everybody get out at the Tijuana Estuary. Are you going to mention Senator Winston?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I highly recommend on 11 o'clock on Friday, if you've got the time, to take over the Tijuana Estuary, and Senator Hueso, our representative from the 40th District, is going to be speaking about the Salton Sea and the Tijuana River Valley. And he is going to be addressing a lot of he's going to have an open forum and an open dialogue to actually get citizen input. So I highly recommend that you make the time. It's from 11 to 1. And then at 1 o'clock, our Assemblyman Gloria, is going to be leading with Chris Peregrine, who is the director over at the Tijuana River Estuary. They're going to be leading a walk and a talk in there. So I highly recommend that. It's a great event for all people to come out and see this event. You don't normally get that small of a space with a senator and an assemblyman at the same time. So I highly recommend. It's your chance to ask them any questions you want. So I highly take a little time to go over there. And then craft fair this weekend at the FRA from 9 to 2. And the library's got Dia de los Muertos, right? From on November 4th from 11 to 2 as well. So lastly, Wes, where's Wes? NASNY celebration coming up on November 11th, right? All day event, free, open to the public. There's bands, food, all kinds of things that I recommend you get over there. So, right, Wes? And did I miss anything on there? Okay. Oops.
We have to correct down.
I like it. I hope I didn't steal some of your thunder there, Wes, did I?
No.
Okay, good.
Good evening, Wes Palmier, Community Plans and Liaison for Naval Base Coronado. So yes, Naval Air Station North Island is celebrating its centennial, turns 100 years old on November 8th.
8.
So that's our actual official date. On November 11th, we are having a myriad of events to include a concert on the base. But to attend the concert, the process is that you have to be a credentialed individual. So if you have a common access card, you have a military ID card, you're a retiree, or you know somebody that is a retiree or an active duty person or someone that is credentialed to come onto the base, or you have an invitation, then you come to the event. So if you are affiliated with the American Legion or any one of the other types of events, they have passes that will allow people to get onto the base. So where it's going to be relatively easy to get onto the base, it is not an open gate and an open public event.
Perfect.
So if you want more information, I believe it's NASNY100.com, and folks can look at that. And
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Les.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. As our representative to MTS, I am the MTS representative to the Sandag Transportation Committee. And I was in attendance at the meeting on Friday, October 6th. I am glad to see representatives from the Chamber of Commerce here. I had spoke to them earlier. I'm speaking to Ms. Aceves and Mrs. Odermatt. I do have the mini grant program. You and we had discussed it. So I have that here. It is a Go by Bike mini grant program that Sandag administers. And the nice thing about it is these are small grants. They're easily, their objectives are easy to obtain. So I will make sure you get that as well. I am our representative to MTS, the Metropolitan Transit System. I was in attendance at the October 19th meeting. It was a long meeting, though, and I brought a copy of this just in case anybody is interested. This is the zero admissions transit vehicles issue that is before all transportation issues in the country. It's a big issue. MTS took the position of waiting and not rushing into buying all electric buses. Sometimes there's wisdom in waiting. The price on those electric buses has come down substantially, and the technology has improved substantially. So it's kind of interesting if you're a transportation geek, so I brought it. MTS is very proud of the an agreement we reached with Sycuan. The Green Line will now be called the Sycuan Green Line, and that's going to, in the first 10 years, generate $6.28 million for MTS. That money will be put back into service and buses in operation. So something we're really proud of. While we still have members of our military organizations, I did want to announce too that Military Appreciation Day, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, is Saturday, November 11th. It will be at Dunes Park. And as a member of the Historical Society, we have just gathered an awesome piece for our historical collection. It is a jacket that was from the Naval Academy in 1933. We did some research on it, and the gentleman who it was issued to in 1933 was a lieutenant commander and was actually at Pearl Harbor and sunk a ship. So the history, you know, once you get digging into it, and he lived in La Mesa. So that will be on display at Military Appreciation Day. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm the chair of the Sandag Borders Committee, and on Friday we had a really great presentation by lifeguards from Imperial Beach, Sergeant Jason Lindquist, and then the City of San Diego, and then the City of Tijuana and the San Diego Firefighter Department, talking about how they cooperate to rescue people who are drowning on the border. It was actually a really moving and inspiring presentation. We should be really proud of our IB lifeguards, talking about rescuing people in rivers, in giant surf conditions on the border. Now they cooperate with Mexico. So really positive and productive. And again, just, you know, we have really an outstanding lifeguard service that Councilmember Pat and I were lucky enough to be on. And so it was really nice to see the leadership exerted by our lifeguards. Through the Borders Committee, we're really trying to emphasize binational cooperation on public safety. We had CAL FIRE with their counterparts in Mexico provide a presentation and overview of firefighting on the border. And I think what came out of this is the idea that hopefully we can do a little bit more to promote best practices for our public safety agency partners to figure out how to work together more cooperatively. And I think that's a long-standing tradition here in San Diego and Tijuana of our public safety agencies working together. So again, shout out to Sergeant Lindquist, and that was set up through Captain Stabenow, and so we really appreciated him coming out, and he put together the whole panel, so with the city of San Diego, and the city of Tijuana, so that was very, very nice. Sandag's dealing with AB 805 and the implementation of that. I think we'll be talking about that on Friday, but the feeling I think it seems to be is that they're just going to move forward on that. There's not going to be any fighting and conflict and drama, I hope. So the Sandag's a transportation agency, and my message always is let's get to work and get things done rather than have lots of grandstanding and drama and conflict. So I'm hopefully that'll be happening. I'm also on the audit committee of Sandag, putting together all the recommendations for reform of the agency after some of the issues that have happened with Measure A and the departure of Executive Director Gary Gallegos. So we're presenting that actually Friday. So I'm very pleased that hopefully there's consensus on moving forward and doing some significant reforms to improve transparency and communications and the way they manage data. A lot of it's been in the media, but anyway, it's been good to highlight some of the best practices in this city and some of the things, reforms that we've implemented and the way we've gone about being a lot more transparent and open. And so really glad to see that moving forward at Sandag. Just was really great to go to the inauguration of the fencing project and beautification project with Public Works. Well, that's a project in partnership with Four Walls, the IB Arts Bureau, the Boys and Girls Club, IB Beautiful, Bayside School, and it's funded by San Diego Gas and Electric and IB Beautiful. If you haven't been on there, the Bayfront side of the Public Works yard has a whole natural history display of sea turtles that was done by artists and biologists from around San Diego and IB. And then the street side has some really great art that was carried out by kids from the Boys and Girls Club, and it's absolutely beautiful. I want to thank our Public Works staff and director, especially, and Chris Helmer, for working with the kids and all the artists to really improve that. So really nice to see, and it's been great to see our Public Works staff and our city staff so involved. I've eaten at Poke 123 5 times since Thursday, actually twice on Saturday. I surfed Black's Beach in the morning with my youngest son, Daniel. My wife came down, he was in a surf contest, and came back, and usually we'd stop in La Jolla somewhere at Rubio's or whatever and have some post-surf food, but I said to Emily, nope, we're going to Poke 123, and so I had the perfect bowl, ahi bowl or whatever, and it's like super healthy. So then I took my dad there that night, and then I ate there yesterday and today. So anyway, but yeah, well, hopefully it's as healthy as they say it was. So anyway, Brigantine just did a soft opening right now. If you haven't been by there, tomorrow they open it at 11. I encourage everybody to go. It's really, we've got some amazing private sector leaders that have invested in Imperial Beach, and the Morton family are just gold medal business folks. It was nice to see the entire family there right now. And really, it's really beautiful, really well done. I'm going to thank our planning staff for working with them, the residents who live there, as well as all the residents around there. It came out really well, and it really upped the game for the business community in Imperial Beach. And then finally, if you haven't had Trident coffee, the jet fuel Trident coffee, I stopped there this morning too. So it's really great. I really, really like it. So anyway, and that's it. That's awesome. Oh, that's great. Good. And I think that's it. All right, we have speaker slip.
Mayor, if I could add just a couple from staff. I just wanted to join you in everything from Triangle Park to having 9 more alleys completed to the new tot lot that's going in at the sports park, the new dog park going in. Got a lot of really busy people out here doing a lot of really good things. And we will be giving you guys an update on our CIP in an upcoming meeting, because there's been a lot of questions. Man, there's a lot going on. Can we get an update? So that'll be coming. So be sure to watch for that. And then I don't want to rain on Tyra's parade, but I'm going to a little bit. First, I think we've had a really fun relationship, and she taught me as much about the fire service as anybody else, and we've had a lot of really good conversations. But speaking as a guy who has come from a cattle ranch to here, going the other way is not going to be as fun. I'm just telling you right now. So anyway, because it snowed in Wyoming yesterday, so you don't want to go there. So anyway, and she's going to South Dakota, which is a little warmer, but still. So anyway, It's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have a public comment. Jack Van Zant from Chamber of Commerce.
Jack Van Zant, 162 Elder Avenue. Honorable Mayor, distinguished council people, I come to you today to speak on behalf of one of the items that you'll consider regarding the chamber and the BID.
I think you have to speak during that, right? Or you have to go. You
Yeah,
have to leave. Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't have
Please.
the opportunity to be here for that.
Sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, go ahead.
And having been a chamber member for the last 14 years, I've served in numerous capacities on the chamber. One of the capacities that I served in was the chairman of the Business Improvement District Committee of the chamber, 2008 and 2009 during the Great Depression. And that's when all the realtors became nonprofit organizations. You remember? So I do have experience with the BID and with the chamber. And I've studied this, your agenda item, and I don't really understand any controversy on that, but I recognize that when I don't understand something, it's always about the money, okay? And it's such a small amount of money with this BID assessment fee thing that clearly when the BID was started, it was necessary because at that time in the 90s in Imperial Beach, you were lucky to sell a postcard or a 50-cent cup of coffee in this town. We have, as noted, we've got more distinguished business operations going on, more well-capitalized. And so the Chamber of Commerce, really, I spent a lot of time this year determining that the Chamber can run with an all-volunteer staff and no physical office. This is the miracle of modern social media and electronic, things. So I would just have to say, in my opinion, having studied it, the BID has really timed out. I recommend respectfully that the BID just simply be closed out and stop business with it and do away with the assessment. And whatever happens after that, the chamber will run on its own because the chamber is made up of some dedicated business people and they'll figure out what to do. But I think that the time for the BID, the reason for it, is over with. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your feedback. We really appreciate that perspective. And now we have Josie Hamada.
Good evening, board members. The reason I needed to say something today is to remind, I'm sorry, my name is Josephine Hamada and I live at 1243 Downing Street. Okay. Is that to remind everybody that at the Veterans event, that the Women's Club is having its 3rd annual Christmas cards to our military overseas. Last year, we did 850. Our goal this year is to do 1,000. So with that in mind, what we've done is that we've extended our friendships with the Boys and Girls Club, with the Scouts, and with the Girl Scouts, so that we can include a greater audience and for the so they can become part of our community. So I am hoping that everybody here in the audience and anybody to please stop by our table and sign a Christmas card to our vets that we hope to send our 1,000 cards overseas to our men and women. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Tyra, we have Tyra Moe, and Tyra, you have June Engel and Nancy Dayton that have donated time. Did you want to come up and give a presentation? Great, thank you.
Imperial Beach Council members, Andy. Eyes over here, bud. Thank you. And my people, my community. I got picked up with the City of Imperial Beach as a firefighter paramedic in January of 2007. And prior to that, I worked as a reserve firefighter for a year and in EMS, which is emergency medical services, for about a year and a half. I got promoted to an engineer just over 2 years ago. And I've spent almost 11 years here, which is about a third of my life. Back in 2010, I bought my house on Connecticut Street. And so this job and career has become a lot more than just a job and a career. It's morphed into something that's really special, where I serve and take care of my neighbors and my friends and total random strangers, tourists, and everybody alike. And there's something very dear to my heart and humbling to be able to be in that position. So this means this has been a really special and wonderful chapter in my life, which I'm very grateful for. And when I filled out the application and decided to become a firefighter, got the job offer, I wanted to represent the badge, and I wanted to represent the fire service as a whole, and I wanted to represent public safety. And being the first and only female in the Imperial Beach Fire Department's history, that just organically changed. And then all of a sudden, I had little girls and families and females and just even, boys, just everybody. It somehow, in one way or another, I became a role model, and that was extremely humble. It's very it brought very humble humility to become that figure, and I take that with great responsibility, and I see it as a total blessing. And that was not my intentions at all. Like I said, I wanted to represent the fire service, but that was a result. And what I've learned over the years is that intentions don't matter and results matter. And with that being the case, I was here for my neighbors and friends, and it's been good. So the reason I'm leaving is my husband and I, he was in the Marine Corps for 9 years, 3 combat deployments, and we want to set up a situation in Lee, South Dakota, so we can have a cattle ranch where we can hire combat veterans transitioning out of the service, because when he did, it was a horrible experience, and we want to hopefully in some way or another help and serve others, and hopefully, help out combat vets so they don't have to go through the same experiences that he did when he was transitioning out. So land's a little cheaper in South Dakota. And the taxes. But we still have that urge and that drive to serve and to provide for and to take care of and to help, which is what makes my heart tick. And recently one of my captains asked me, he's like, what motivates you? What motivates me? You've been my captain for so long, but it's leaving a situation a little bit better than when I found it. And I don't say that in an arrogant way, but that's just what makes my heart happy, whether it's an impression on somebody's life or an emergency situation or whatever. And so we are going to conceptually take that in the form of building our own cattle ranch. When I got there, I have a job waiting for me as a paramedic, because all the fire departments are volunteer. And and the town that I'm going to is also very small, and I will be living in the same town that I will be serving and taking care of. So it's a very parallel. I'll just not be wearing short sleeve Class Bs there, but I'll be able to take care of my people there too. And the reason I'm speaking tonight, it's not about me at all. It's about my people and my community and my tribe. You guys become really one. I mean, you guys are my family. You guys are my people. You know, and it's profoundly rewarding to be able to have been taking care of you guys and keeping you safe. And you trust me as a total stranger and as your friend and neighbor to go into your homes when you're in your most compromised and delicate state. So thank you. This whole thing is very bittersweet for me and a few neighbors here and there, possibly. But we're really excited, and even if I'm here or there or whatever, I do have a very personal vested interest in the city of Imperial Beach. I have a lot of friends and loved ones here. I'm keeping my house, so I will be back. If anything, back in May for June's wedding, but I will be back, I promise. And yeah, thank you very much for your time and attention, and thank you for being my people. So I love you guys.
Thank you so much for being here, and good luck in South Dakota and for all your service to IB. Great. We have consent calendar items 2.1 to 2.1, 2.2, and 2.4 through 2.6. Two 2.3 is the sewage. Yes. Okay. Great. And Dante Pamintuan, you had a comment?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, Ed Spriggs, Bobby Patton, Mark, Lori, Mayor, City staff. I want to also thank you for everything you guys do for Imperial Beach. Just wanted to make a comment on this travel. I don't know if it's been approved or not. You know, if it's been approved, that's fine. I, as well as a lot of residents, would like to see the expenditures that would be that would be spent by the city to pay for this trip. So my comment today is I and many residents oppose our mayor or city council members attending partisan political events on the city's dime. That's the main issue on this type of expenditure. When it doesn't have anything to do with the Imperial Beach, we get climate change. I think everybody understands the impact that climate change has on our community. But the whole idea of spending city's money and you know, that kind of money could be spent on a promotional video created for tourists and visitors to come to our city and to resolve the issues about climate change and raw sewage in our oceans. And I mean, this is something that I believe, and some of the residents, many residents feel that I think the mayor and his quest for, and it's admirable, you know, you're trying to solve an issue here with raw sewage, and I get that. But City of Imperial Beach is it's a transformed place thanks to many of the city council members here because of their vision about what our city has become. So the idea of promoting City of Imperial Beach with positive images of our city instead of raw sewage and those kinds of things and climate change, we just don't feel that this is appropriate. It's not relevant to you attending a boondoggle event like this on the city's dime. So it sets up a precedent for future councils and members to spend city money on boondoggle partisan events that are not conducive to the nonpartisan governance of Imperial Beach. We're supposed to be a nonpartisan. Do we get involved with national politics? Democrats, Republicans, independents? No, this is Imperial Beach. We're nonpartisan. We're working together to make our community great. And so if it's already approved, I'd like to see that the detailed expenditures on how much money is,
time's up, so
will be paid by the city. Thank you. And who will be attending that?
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
My question to the mayor, and I do apologize for a sidebar comment, was I wondered if you wanted to respond or if you wanted me to respond.
No, I mean, I can respond. I was invited by the mayor of Chicago to the Mayor's Climate Summit. It's a nonpartisan event attended by mayors throughout the country to talk about issues related to climate change and their impact on cities. I think we put the copy of the invitation in the record, and they're paying for a hotel, one night of hotel, so it'll be a plane fare. And that's about it. It's the type of event that we attend routinely, whether it's in Sacramento. We have League of City Voters, so League of City events. It's the first event of this kind I've attended, but no hint of partisanship. And as far as I know, there's no partisanship. There's no party required to attend. And mayors I work with across the country, or at least in San Diego, are from every political party. And I never ask people of the political party anyways.
Thank you for your response. And I'd like to thank Mr. Pamatwan. Hope I didn't mispronounce your name. I always do. And this was part of a desire of this council, was to be more transparent. In the past, when one of us traveled, it was on an agenda after we had traveled. So we thought, maybe we're doing this incorrectly. So we are now voting on those travel issues before we even go. We have asked the city manager, and we apologize to our community for not doing it prior to this, of exactly what's involved, the stay, who's paying, who's going, so that there is full and complete transparency. I want to thank the mayor for your comments. I did want that issue to be cleared up. I'd like to thank Mr. Pamatwan for raising the issue. I'm sure maybe other people in the community wondered as well. It's an issue that this council is trying to correct in its efforts to be transparent. So thank you.
So moved. Second.
Motion carried unanimously.
And we have item 6.1, IV redevelopment report. Adoption of resolution number SA-17-7 approving with Montague to Rob full advisor. Jones Hall is bond.
Your mic's off.
Sorry. It was a very long title. A bond and disclosure counsel on Fraser and Associates as fiscal consultant to provide financial services for the possible refunding of the 2010 tax allocation bonds, and requesting that the oversight board direct the successor agency to begin the proceedings of refunding the series 210 tax allocation bonds, including refunding costs as an enforceable obligation. I think that's the longest title of any item we've had on the agenda since I've been elected.
We want you to repeat it another time.
And Finance Director Bradley will go over the report.
Good evening, Chair and board members for the successor agency. This is a successor agency item, and what the mayor just said. So you have a resolution before you which will allow the successor agency to enter into some professional agreements with bonding professionals to take a look at our 2010 bond and look at a possible refunding. Let me just go through a high-level overview of what this is, and then if we want to get into more details, I have those professionals here. So once again, this is successor agency debt, not city debt, and it's very important for the residents to understand that this is the successor agency, former redevelopment agency debt that we're looking at. That we're looking at the 2010 bonds. There's also a 2013 bond that the successor agency has that was formerly the 2003, and it's actually this group that refinanced that in 2013. Remember, these bond funds were used for redevelopment projects like the hotel, 9th and Palm, Bikeway Village, our alleys. Those funds have since been exhausted as soon as we finished this last alley project. With a drop in interest rates, there can potentially be lower bond payment. Okay, and that's where the savings comes in. These bond payments are paid through the recognized obligation payment schedule. These are a recognized obligation, so the city does not pay these. These go through the successor agency. The bond payment savings is estimated to be about $179,000 per year. And that savings then rolls through the successor agency and passes through to the successor agency taxing entities, like the county, the school districts, and the city. And it's shared amongst them. The net present value of those savings over the course of this refunding is $1.5 million. So $1.5 million in present value dollars could be saved through this refinancing. If the refunding is unsuccessful, that can happen if interest rates were to change between now and the conclusion, which would be about the refunding, which would be about in March. All the non-contingency costs, meaning most of the costs are contingent upon that refinancing, but that small portion that is non-contingent would be paid for through a subsequent recognized obligation as a recognized obligation on a ROP. So the city would not be obligated to do that. That really sums it up. So I do have Michael Kramer and David Bama here who could go into more detail if you would like, or could answer questions, or I can answer some questions, but I'll leave it at that and see where you guys are at, and if you want to go further.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Colleagues, Mr. Spriggs, you have questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. The 179,000 that's coming back to the taxing entities, do you have the breakout? You have it in the report, which is very clear, but I think it'd be useful for the public to see who's getting money back or saving money, and which is it of those two. The different pieces of where that 179,000 a year is going to go back into these different entities.
So I don't have that in a slide format. I apologize, but I could quickly go through the numbers in a rounded figure.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. West?
Just a quick question. Have we there's a lot of writing on the wall that says by March we're going to see a little increase in interest rates. Have you done any preliminary numbers on a potential interest rate? So I mean, most will probably see is maybe 0.25%. We looked at it if Yep. I guess, Mr. Kramer, thank you so much for attending, by the way. But I guess my question really is it if we see an increase in the interest rates, which I fully expect, is how much are we still saving at that point? I mean, is it still significant? Is what I'm trying to get out.
Hi, Michael Kramer with Montague Rose Associates. We're hired as the SA's municipal advisor for this bond refinancing. I'm reluctant to make predictions of rate increases. I mean, I think the market expects the Fed to raise rates a little bit more by December, but it's hard to say if they will. They met yesterday and didn't make any changes. I think what we'll establish is a minimum savings threshold at that point, at which you'll say it's not worth our time to do it now because these bonds, there's about 20 million outstanding. They have a prepayment feature, which is June 2020. So until June 2020, the money is put into an escrow. So, and that escrow actually earns less than the rate's paying, which is a drag on the refinancing. So as time progresses, you actually save a little bit, but you take risk in waiting because market rates may go up by more, and those rates that you're going to pay for 20 years will overwhelm the savings on the escrow.
Sure.
So there's a slide in the appendix to the presentation that kind of shows a break even. You wanted to wait at those various dates, 6-month dates to wait. It's not exactly an answer to your question, but it is an option. So to come back, I think we should want to establish a minimum threshold.
Yeah.
You know, and we plan to come back to the SA, and it will be in December to approve the documents. This is more conceptual approval of the professional services agreements. So really in December, we kick it off.
Okay.
And the reason the process takes quite a while till March is because we need state approval for the refunding, and that takes up to 60 days.
I just think I think as we move forward, I think it's important for me to see. I mean, if we're entering in the agreement is fine, but I would like to see the minimum threshold if we could to make sure that this is at that point is that if we do see an increase in the interest rate, if it's still that a good investment. I mean, I think it's going to be. I can't imagine, but I just wanted to see it.
Right now, the projected savings are, as Doug had mentioned, 1.5 million. That's all inclusive of all costs. That's equivalent to just under 8% of the refunded principal amount.
Okay.
Typically, with an advanced refunding, we are looking at a minimum of 3 to 5%. So now we're at 8%. So we could say, you know, if we drop below 5 or drop below 4, we put it on hold and see what happens.
We have a lot of.
We have room. There's room, right?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to thank Mr. Bradley for the presentation, keeping it concise to the point where we could vote on this and move forward. I want to thank you for coming in and the rest of your, Mr. Fama. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
In that spirit, ditto. Thank you. Yeah. There you go. Is there a motion? Can we just, in the spirit of keeping it brief, just keep brief and move forward? We have a long agenda, so.
My question is just very simple and has to do with the fees. And when the fees, the non-contingent fees will be obligated, and where that fits in the timeline of making this interest rate decision going forward. And as I understand it, the non-contingent portion is about 80,000. The total fee, assuming the bond reissue goes through, is about 140,000. That's coming out of our successor agency, ROP, not general funds. But at what point is that 80,000, which is non-contingent, is just gone, committed, and where in the judgment process is that going to lie?
Well, some of those non-contingent fees are with Mr. Kramer, and you want to comment on that?
I think our contract says that if the refinancing is not executed by June 30, I think that was our deadline of next year, then that portion would be paid. So we have 7.
But I think also we're committing to that by the execution of this agreement. So, yeah.
If you agree.
So we're committing to that, and that is likely to be spent even if we don't go forward because the interest rates have gone up, that sort of thing.
Yeah, a lot of the work they do is in the beginning, and they've already been working on it. So, commit their time to this project, and that portion that is non-contingent is to protect them for that, being paid for those services.
Okay, I just think we need to know all that. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, any other comments? Let me read this again. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I was supposed to read all that. Oh, okay. Good. I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number SA-17-57.
Second.
Please vote. Yeah.
Motion carried unanimously.
Oh, for some reason, I thought I had to read the whole thing. I know, right. Sorry. Okay. All right, now we have item 2 point, let me get back to this. 2.4, and that's the second reading. I'm sorry, it's 2.3. Resolution number 2017-7861, continuing the proclamation of a state of local emergency relating to impacts from cross-border pollution in the Tijuana River. Do you have any speaker slips on that? If you'd like, I'd like to give a report. Mr. Spriggs, did you want to update on anything, or I can just give a summary of the events?
No, I think it's your item. You ought to do the summary.
Okay.
And talk about
So
the press
just-
conference today. as well.
I think it's important to update the council and the public on where we're at with Tijuana River. I think we're all very proud of the fact that our notice of intent that was filed by the city of Imperial Beach, we've been joined by the county of San Diego, the city of San Diego, the city of Chula Vista, and the port of San Diego. That's an historic move and sort of process for the city of San Diego, for the region, and probably for the state of California. We have the city of Coronado, we're signing an MOU, I think, with them to support financially a lawsuit if we move forward on that for the tune of $50,000. So that's something I did talk to their mayor, Richard Bailey, today, and still say I hope he considered joining a lawsuit. So they said they could reevaluate that. And it's on my understanding, the city of National City, we were informed by their city manager that they will be also evaluating whether to join the notice of intent. So the next step in that is if and when we file a lawsuit, and then when that would happen. So I think that's our next step. There's been a number of developments that have only reinforced the need to file a lawsuit, but just wanted some of the things that we've done. A couple weeks ago, I attended the City of Tijuana Public Economic Development Commission that's run by the City of Tijuana City Council. That was run by 2 city council members from Playa de Tijuana, who were very concerned that Playa Tijuana, instead of being the Laguna Beach of Mexico, is turning into the Beirut Beach of Mexico. Property values are declining there. Businesses are failing. It's filled with garbage, and the water is polluted all the time, and the stench of sewage pervades that area. You live there, so maybe that's their concern, and that's something that we're concerned about. So we've been trying to reach out to people and make sure that we're clear about that it's not just an Imperial Beach problem, but that there are almost 10 miles of beach in Mexico from the border all the way to Rosarito Beach that are polluted, closed off, filled with garbage, and basically represent a lost economic opportunity for the city of Tijuana. So that's a good message. I then had Yvette Casillas, one of the city council members here at our lifeguard station, to talk about how to further help them and work together to get the message out. They need to clean up their beaches. And then we had the Baja California director of the National Water Agency of Mexico came to have breakfast with us at C-180, and that was done with a Mexican program manager from an organization called Pro Natura, and then as well as, who else was at that meeting? I think that was it. I think that was it. I'll think of who else was at that meeting, but really to find out what was happening on the part of the federal government. He said that they're working on almost like a triage plan to move forward and identify what the most needed improvements would be for the sewage system on the Mexican side of the border, then to prevent sewage from reaching our beaches. So that's their goal, is to do that. And obviously the first step would be to improve what's called the Punta Banderas sewage treatment plant, which is 4.5 miles south of the border and dumps 40 million gallons of raw sewage on the beach every day. So that's good news and bad news. The bad news coming out of Congress is that there's $0 allocated to fix the problem. Where we thought in the summer we had $30 million allocated to fix the problem from EPA funding. Turns out that Congress and the president have zeroed out the budget, and right now there's no money allocated to fix the problem. So whatever you read about bills and people talking about funding solutions, there's absolutely, the only thing that matters in politics is if someone allocates money to fix a problem. In this case, there's been a lot of rhetoric and a lot of talking and zero money allocated. So there has been a movement to see if we can get Darrell Issa to put money back in the budget. And I did ask Richard Bailey. This is where partisanship does matter. And it's good and important to have a mayor like Richard Bailey who identifies as a Republican. And frankly, I know all of us don't care if Republican and Democrat, but has a good relationship with Darrell Issa. So I asked him to call Congressman Issa to ask him to put money back in the budget. So we'll see if that helps at all. I'm not hopeful. And then finally, where we're at with the most recent sewage spill that highlighted why we're doing a lawsuit and why absolutely nothing at all has changed since the massive February spill earlier in the year. And that's On Thursday, I surfed. I know Councilmember Mark West surfed. If you know anything about the waves last week, it was one of the best, probably the best surf of the year. Absolutely historic swell, perfect waves, and beautiful conditions. The only people that enjoyed last week with the heat wave were surfers. And I ended up getting really sick after I surfed on Thursday. Didn't smell anything. The water seemed clean. But apparently surfers throughout Imperial Beach or on the beach were getting sick. Zach Plopper from Wild Coast, who works with me, ended up getting sick. I used to talk to a guy who works for Customs and Immigration. He got sick as well. And so on Friday, and at that time on Thursday, residents of Playas were complaining about smells. On Friday morning, I paddled out, not knowing that I'd gotten sick from the water. And the beach absolutely, the stench of sewage was pervasive. Our assistant public works, our environmental director, Chris Helmer, had paddled out 20 minutes before me and saw solid matter in the water and it smelled. He came in. Throughout the morning, the beach stunk. We made phone calls. Playas apparently had stunk that night, all in the morning. The test results from Playas to Tijuana, from Tijuana Waterkeeper, showed elevated levels of pollution. And so we called County Department of Health to investigate. What happened only highlighted the problems. When County Department of Environmental Health asked the National Boundary and Water Commission if there'd been a sewage spill, ultimately they asked the guy that covered up the sewage spill in February, the head of the Public Services Agency in Tijuana. So that guy, obviously, Miguel Lemos, the head of SAS, has no commitment to transparency, accountability, and is committed to covering up spills as much as possible. The problem was that rather than represent the interests of American residents, American citizens on this side of the border, the International Boundary and Water Commission and the County Department of Environmental Health took that information at face value. It didn't say the water smells in Playas, the tests show that the water's polluted in Playas, surfers are getting sick in Imperial Beach and it stinks in Imperial Beach. Therefore, something must be happening and we must investigate. They just said, sounds fine, nothing's happening. We're not going to do anything about it. And so therefore, the County Department of Environmental Health didn't issue an advisory. They didn't do any testing and they failed to protect public health. Their director contacted me today. We're going to meet and discuss why they failed to protect public health. And I have to change that policy. We sent a letter to the National Boundary and Water Commission asking for an investigation and complaining, a letter of complaint about what happened and why this was unacceptable. I hope, in theory, we copied that to all our elected representatives. And I also communicated with the Consul of Mexico and then in San Diego and the Consul of U.S. in Tijuana. We've asked the Consul of Mexico. She said she was investigating this, but the argument were made to the media today at a press conference in Spanish was that this is impacting U.S.-Mexico relations, and why would the Mexican federal government allow a state bureaucrat who works for the Baja California governor to ruin U.S.-Mexico relations and cover up this? This has been a significant, consistent problem. And so this one person is hurting Mexico, it's hurting us, and it's moving us further away from solving the problem. So I want to thank council members West and Spriggs for participating in the press conference today. We had a lot of good media. The advice I get from some pretty high-level folks in Mexico, some of the most influential business leaders in Mexico, are make as much noise as possible. Make as much noise as possible. Be as aggressive as possible. Create what they called an escándalo in Mexico and say that it's impacting NAFTA, which it is. So that's the direction. We're not going to continue to be as aggressive as possible and move forward, because it's very clear to me from this response is that no one has our back except the people that signed under our lawsuit. Neither the International Boundary and Water Commission, neither the EPA, neither the County Department of Environmental Health, or our state of California. No one stands up and says, we'll investigate a sewage spill except Imperial Beach. So that's my synopsis. Now, if there are any other comments? Mr. Spriggs, yes.
Recently, the director of the Regional Water Control Board sent a letter to IBWC covering a number of points. Do you think that that will be helpful as part of what we're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so the the Regional Water Board has said that it would hopefully, they're evaluating the idea of doing TMDLs, total maximum daily loads, which mean they would set requirements at not allowing any sewage or trash in the Tijuana River Valley, and require the International Boundary and Water Commission to enforce that. That's in theory. That in theory would help. They're pushing the International Boundary and Water Commission to do what we want. Now, can I talk about the letter we got from the Justice Department? So the Justice Department did reply to our notice of intent, and their response was, this is a response to our lawsuit. Dude, it ain't our problem, but patting on us on our pretty heads, it's really nice that you contacted us. And by the way, let's have a few really cool little workshops so we can all feel good about each other and discuss it. That's not going to solve the problem. So thankfully, our lawyers are a lot more diplomatic than I am and have crafted a draft letter that's a little bit more diplomatic and thanking them for their sincerity. But anyway, but the regional board, I think that's good on the regional board. The regional board should have done that 10 years ago. They didn't. People tried to work things out. They've had lots of workshops. Very little has been accomplished. So we're going to move forward, and we hope that our partners, regional partners, join us. But I want to thank the city council and the city staff for their leadership. This community is united on this front, and I really appreciate having everyone's back and having all of you involved in this. Yes, Mr. West.
Just one quick thing. Do you think it would help if the Regional Water Quality Board actually joined in our lawsuit? That would
Yeah,
probably
so we asked them. I also met with Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom to ask him to have the State of Lands Commission join. We'd asked him before. We just saw him 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So he knew about the issue. They're investigating it. Obviously, the state of California should address this. The state of California should have filed a lawsuit a long time ago. They should be protecting the people of California, and more importantly, the state of California lands that are in along the border. It shouldn't be the state parks picking up the tab to clean up the border, and we're thankfully losing access to our beach. The big picture is Imperial Beach is, in our jurisdiction, is the most gorgeous beach in all of Southern California. If you haven't walked from the southern end of our beach at the Boca Rio Apartments to the border, it is God's gift to us. It is a beautiful, beautiful beach. And we surfed there, 2 weeks ago, Mark, 3 weeks ago, and his sun was rising. There's dolphins in the water. The surf was firing. Luckily, the water was clean. And we've lost access to that beach. We've lost access to Borderfield State Park, which belongs in the city of Imperial Beach, and we put our city limits sign there. But that's the message we're trying to get out to Tijuana as well, is that ultimately they've lost their coast too, 10 miles of it. And so we need to get that back. So anyway, that's it.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right, without anything else than that, I think, we have to, right. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the ordinance. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2017-7861.
So moved.
See, I'm learning. I can do this.
Teach
I'm good enough. All right. Sorry. All right. Just trying to keep all the numbers in order.
Councilmember Patton.
All right, now we're on 3-1, right?
Wait just a minute.
I'll vote. I'm sorry.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. All right, item 3-1, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2017-1169 regarding purchasing. Mr. Finance Director Bradley will give the report.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'll keep this brief. This bit of housekeeping. This ordinance will change or will increase the limit that triggers the formal bidding process and the limit by where the city manager can execute contracts for the purchase of services and goods. Currently, that limit is set at $10,000, and I'd like to raise it, or I'm suggesting perhaps we raise that to $45,000. Why would we do this? It really would improve our purchasing efficiency. You know, many of the things we are purchasing these days exceed $10,000, and each time then we have to come back to council, and sometimes that doesn't coincide with council meetings. This limit hasn't been adjusted since it was first introduced in 1988. So we've seen this before in just a recent council meeting. I just calculated an adjusted amount for inflation. It would double that. So just if we were keeping up with inflation, it would be $20,000. So losing ground on what we can purchase in terms of this municipal code. This is completely separate from the construction cost accounting limits that you enacted by ordinance several meetings ago with regards to public works project. This is just for non-public works project. For us, we're purchasing a vehicle, or when we hired the professional services for the website design, those kind of things that are non-public projects. On the right, I have a slide. I went ahead and polled. I got a lot of response. About 55 communities responded to my request on what their purchasing limits were, and there's Imperial Beach there at the bottom. So like to see if we can't get towards the middle and just kind of improve our purchasing efficiencies. And so I suggested 45,000 to get us right there at the meeting. That's all I have.
Great. Questions, comments?
Comment.
Yep.
Mr. Bradley, I'd like to thank you for bringing this issue forward. I think this is a great response to the council's desires to actually be more efficient with our resources, and that includes our city staff time. So having said that, I would move the item forward.
Good. I just wanted to comment. I like the comparative. I love when the staff do comparative charts to compare what you're doing with other cities. I think that's, for me, that really helps. So thank you for doing that. Great. Please vote.
Mr. Mayor, may I read the title first?
Oh, would like to entertain a motion to introduce ordinance number 2017-1169.
Ordinance number 2017-1169, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, amending Title 3, Chapter 3.04, Purchasing of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code related to bidding and award of contracts for supplies, services, and equipment.
Great. Now I would like to entertain a motion to introduce ordinance number 2017-1169. I don't mind voting.
You already voted.
Oh, okay. All
Motion
right.
carried unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, now we have item 3.2, introduction of ordinance number 2017-1165, amending chapter 12.33 of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code concerning special event permits. City Manager Hall will give the report.
Mayor and council, at a previous meeting, we talked a little bit about some things we could do to bring some balance to the use of our public facilities. And the city council asked me to go out and get some additional information. And so we went out and we got some additional information. We also took this information to your Parks and Recreation Committee to get their recommendations so that you would get a feel for what they thought might be the appropriate balance that you're trying to strike. A couple of things first. I want to make sure everyone knows this is not written in stone. I think that we have gone the pendulum of the clock, or we didn't have a lot of events in our town maybe 15 or 20 years ago, to where now we have a lot of events in our town, and maybe we're just trying to find that balance. And so that's some of the things that we're doing. We did receive some direction from the Parks and Recreation Committee that caution water on the road during rain, and some other information from them as well, which is, we talked a little bit about the mission statement. And how then do our public facilities tie into our mission statement to maintain and enhance Imperial Beach as classic Southern California? And I like to go to our mission statement whenever I can because it's just perfect for what our community is. Beach-oriented community with a safe small town atmosphere, rich in natural and cultural resources. It's just very clear what we're trying to accomplish as a community. And so but then again, when we're talking about events, what is classic Southern California? And that's always what the debate is. I think we all understand the mission statement and very much support it, but we want to make sure we understand it. But special events have increased significantly. We see a lot more special events than we have in the past, and the noise complaints have come not just, I've heard a lot of things that, oh, all these new people moving to town, they want to shut down our events. Most of the complaints I get are actually from long-term residents, not from new people. In fact, I get very few from new people. So I wanted to clarify that, make sure that people understand it's coming from a lot of different places, and not just from new people. There are limited opportunities to use some of our areas as parks, especially some of the ones, Pier Plaza, Dunes Park. It's very difficult to call those parks. In a lot of ways, they have become event venues rather than parks. And so that's some of the concerns that people have had. We've had challenges with maintenance. With that much use, it's just really hard to keep up with the grass, to keep up with the repairs and the lights and everything that's going on. It's just really hard to keep up. And then, of course, we have our challenges with personnel, with overtime and some of those other things, because we have an event almost every weekend. And so some of those things are starting to take a toll on what we can provide as a community. We have some great things that are happening throughout our community in these areas. Here's the junior lifeguards. We have the Sun and Sea Festival, the Symphony by the Sea. You can see here, this is what a great facility we have, and it's great for these things. But you can imagine what it's like to be a public works staff the next morning after this many people have been there, and picking up garbage or getting the grass green again and some of those kinds of things. So but what great facilities we have in this community. We're just very, very blessed. We have some car shows that we see happen in our community. We have little pocket parks. We're trying to take even the smallest areas that we have that before have just been weed patches or forgotten areas, and really trying to make them meaningful areas in our community, because we are landlocked. We're built out. Almost everything we do is infill or redevelopment. So we're trying to be very careful about some of the things we have. I have a great beach. I always show this picture just because if I don't, Robert always whines that we don't show enough about the lifeguards and stuff. But we have a great pier, a great beach, great sunsets. And so one of the things that we talked to the Parks and Recreation Committee about is we wanted to make sure that we understood what each one of these facilities can do, what we have in our facilities, in our community that are available. And so you can see on the left-hand side, you can see each one of the areas listed, and then across the top, we talked about the address, whether or not reservations would be allowed, whether special events would be allowed, amplification, what the submission deadlines might be, and the submission location where you would submit it, and then some special notes. And so this is the recommendation that your Parks and Recreation Committee came, and I know this is kind of hard to read, but at least it gives you an idea of our facilities. If you look at the community room, for example, that's the room right here behind us. Special events would be allowed there. There would be a $200 deposit plus a fee. And that deposit that gives people 200 reasons to leave that in good condition, to pick up the garbage and to make sure that there's no damage. And you always, if you can give people that incentive, lots of times we find that things come out in better condition. You would need to submit a month prior. The location, of course, is at City Hall. And then there's a special note that city events take precedent. If this body needed to hold a special meeting, even if someone had reserved it in advance, the city's got to be able to use that room for municipal functions if necessary. Dunes Park probably has the biggest change, or we're proposing the biggest change. Dunes Park is at 790 Seacoast Drive. We are recommending that reservations and special events not be held at Dunes Park. A very small park. Pier Plaza is built for events. We have a stage there. We have the pier there and a lot of other things. But there are a lot of days, especially weekend days, when both of those parks, both of them have special events going on. And literally, it would be difficult for someone to go play catch with their kid in a park near the coast. It makes it very, very difficult. So we want to have one area along the coast that's just a park where people can go and enjoy a park setting. So we are suggesting that no reservations or special events be allowed in Dunes Park, and that no amplification be allowed in Dunes Park. Now you see the asterisk there. We are proposing that the city council may authorize special events. So if there's the Sun and Sea Festival, for example, is a large event, the city council could, if someone approached you, the city council could allow something in Dunes Park, but it would be at council approval. We normally wouldn't allow it except for those larger events that we have in the town, maybe, the marathon or Sun and Sea Festival or something like that, the larger events, but it would be at the discretion of the council. The others you can go through there. There aren't a lot of changes, but you can see here that we put some things about the Dempsey Holder Center. We would stay true to the fact that right now the Dempsey Holder Center is really only used for government or nonprofits. We don't allow, for instance, private weddings, birthday parties, those kinds of things in the Dempsey Center. That's really intended for government or quasi-governmental use, nonprofits. And you can see the Pier Plaza there, Rima Park, Sports Park, Teeple Park. Of course, Rima Park and Teeple Park are a little small to have special events and whatnot, and that's why they're not allowed now. We would continue to not allow them. And then you see Veterans Park there. I think Veterans Park is a gold mine. It's an absolutely beautiful park that is not used enough. We want to certainly encourage people to use this beautiful facility here. We've got the library there now, and so we certainly want to make sure that there are areas where people can use those parks. And then we have the public beaches. And so, again, this is a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Committee on how to use your parks. So wanted to talk about two different, this gets a little bit confusing, but I wanted to tie them together because last time it got a little bit confusing. Some of the administration of the parks happens at the staff level, the administrative level. And we have implemented a couple of changes, and we are proposing to implement a couple more. I want to make you clear with that, and then talk about the city council's part of this. What we have implemented is that the sound amplification permits, or the sound permits, you have to have a special event permit to do that. Before, you could get just a sound permit. You wouldn't need a special event permit. The problem with that is the sound permit is just that, it's a sound permit. What the special event permit allows us to do is to look at these other factors here that you can see controlling noise that would disturb other activities at the same facility or surrounding neighborhood. All elements of the city's noise ordinance must be followed. You can read the criteria there. But it allows us to apply the criteria that is applied to the special events permits when we're issuing noise permits. And I think that that's important. Rather than just giving out a carte blanche noise approval, now they've got to demonstrate some of these other things that are demonstrated by the special events permit. So we have implemented that. We're proposing to limit the number of events held in a particular location to 4 permits per year in order to balance the demand for special events. So for any entity or party, they could only have up to 4 events a year. At one point, we looked at 1 per quarter, but with our climate the way it is and people wanting to do things in the summer, let's say that the Chamber of Commerce wanted to do a summer series and wanted to use Pier Plaza, 4 times each one of the summer months, July, August, September, October. That gives them those 4 times a year. But so rather than 4 times once per quarter, we're suggesting 4 times per year. The thing to remember about Pier Plaza is that the farmers market is there every Friday. So Fridays are already gone at Pier Plaza. They are already consumed, and that's with a conditional use permit. It's outside of what we're talking about tonight. So this will not affect the farmers market, but one of the weekend days, 52 times a year, is gone. And so that park's going to be used at least one day every weekend of the year. And that's why, again, we're trying to strike that balance. And then finally, we want to introduce the Imperial Beach property use table that we just talked about previously, and that would be implemented again by staff. So that's staff. We're not asking the council, unless you're uncomfortable with staff implementing these, council would need to take no action. What we're asking from the council is the Parks and Recreation Committee would recommend the introduction of an ordinance that essentially would lower the threshold of what is defined as a special event from 50 persons to 25 persons. And that would be consistent with what's happening in the cities of Coronado, Chula Vista, Encinitas, Solana Beach. A lot of the beach communities have used 25 as that number rather than 50. Essentially, that's a change that needs to be done because it's identified in our ordinance. And then we're also recommending a few non-material revisions. For instance, clarify the definition of a special event. We need to update the current waste removal company. Our ordinance still refers to a previous waste removal company. We need to update that to EDCO. Reference the updated temporary sign regulations, and then to clarify some enforcement options. That really won't change much, but it's important to staff, but really won't change much. So again, the Parks and Recreation Committee, again with the support of staff, is asking for the introduction of Ordinance 2017-1165 to lower the threshold from 50 persons to 25. And then just inform you that probably the biggest change we would have is at Dunes Park. Make sure that we get comments from the City Council and move forward to see if we can strike that balance between community use, public use, visitor use of our limited resources that we have in our community. Thank you.
That was an excellent overview. Thank you so much, and thanks to the staff for all that work. I know it's a lot of complicated. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, if you could put up the chart that you had there, that one. I had a question on the Veterans Park deposit. In the past, I know that has been an issue for the Memorial Day celebration. How will that be addressed? And will that be administered at a council level or at the city staff level? So I'll let you answer that one first.
Yeah, that's a very good question. The City Council could waive any or all of the deposits for, again, quasi-city event. The $500 deposit really comes, Veterans Park, it applies more to, we see a lot of people rent that for, I don't know what to call them, bouncy houses. I don't know what they call them, but jumpies. That's right. That's what I've heard, for jumpies. And so what happens, of course, they get staked in, they may hit a sprinkler pipe. And so there's some damage that we've got to go repair. Now, if you don't do that, we give you $500 back. But if we've got to go out and do repairs to the sprinkling system, we use your deposit, we fix it, and whatever we don't spend, we give back to you. But again, for these quasi-city events, for instance, the fishing derby that is strictly for the children of Imperial Beach. We have traditionally waived that fee and waived that deposit because, again, they're doing it for the kids. It's as much for the city as it is for anyone else. So there are certain events that we actually waive those fees because it's really in keeping with our recreation program, essentially.
Okay, perfect. And then if you could go to the next slide. I had a question on it really pertains to items that are contained, that would be in the permit, and that issue would be dogs off leash, snakes. I mean, and we've seen some of these things at some of our larger events. Is that contained anywhere of things that are just not acceptable at an event, and that you would be asked to, because we've had it.
Did you say snake?
That's what I was.
Snakes.
Okay.
Oh, at Sandcastle Days, we had a variety
Oh,
of
they were
every.
walking up down the street with someone had a big snake on it.
Oh, it was.
Crazy snake people, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank
is
you.
that contained anywhere in this language?
You know, the dogs on a leash is contained. We will have to go back and put the snakes on a leash on there, but we probably should, because you're right. There were a couple of people that had those snakes around their neck that was a little freaky. But yes, that's a really good point. We will go back and work with the Humane Society and get appropriate language for not just dogs and snakes, but any animals that could present harm to the public, or either through disease or actually some aggressive attack.
You, Councilmember West.
I'm still trying to get.
Sorry. Andy, I really want to thank the staff for a lot of the things that this was kind of a debate that we had up here on this that day, and you really implemented a lot of the things that both sides were talking about it on the chart that you put together. So you took some of the guidance from us that I didn't think was that clear, and really made it, you took a lot of, it was really good. So I'm really happy. The one thing I would ask about is that when we talked about maybe making it available to, okay, so somebody wants to go to Portwood Plaza, but veterans, is there a way to incentivize people to maybe use the other parks? But I guess the 4 would still limit them. They can only use, is that all the parks in the city, the 4 times?
That was to apply to Pier Plaza.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Just Pier Plaza.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
You know, one thing, Mayor, I apologize. I handed it to you very late, but there actually was a public comment. I didn't know if the council wanted to hear that so they could respond. No, I handed it to you very late.
Valerie, sorry.
Thank you for allowing me. My name is Valeria Seves, 1121 9th Street. I just learned about this today, so I really haven't had a chance to really look into it, but I did look at this. And my concern is at Veterans Park. I'm a grandmother and a mom, and whenever we have a birthday party, we go to Veterans Park, and there's usually 30 to 50 people there during that. And I know I could afford the $500, but I don't know if someone else could afford that. And I think you're gonna drop down the amount of these families that are coming there and, you know, enjoying this on a birthday party type of atmosphere. I don't know if you guys have been to this park during these parties, but you know, it is a family, it's almost like a family event on a weekend. And I would hate to see that stop happening there because of this $500. I know that when we make reservations there, because we have to use the city approved bouncies, so they know that we're there. Maybe there's some way where you could have a reservation where, you know, sometimes there's too many of us there, but we always do what's right, you know, when we're like, we want our spot. But I just believe that when I understand this for special events and stuff, but I feel like you're taking a part of the city and you're knocking them out of being able to use Veterans Park and even Sports Park as well, because there's a lot of birthday parties and jumpies over there as well. So I would ask that you please look at a personal side of it, as long as, you know, I get the special event side, but honestly, as a parent and a grandparent, it's going to kill a lot of families being able to do this. It's really, I think, too high for that family that's looking for a place to go and have an enjoyable day and still be able to afford a party like that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point. The part of what we have down here.
What's the charge now?
I think it's $45, but I don't think we have a deposit on, what is it? $45 deposit. But I wanted to point out to the city council, I think Mrs. Seves made a really good point. Part of what you see in the second bullet point there was the definition of a special event. We are not trying to define birthday parties as a special.
Would you go back to the
as a special event. So we want to be careful about how we define that. So we will continue to make sure that we massage that. We're not, again, I agree with you. We're not trying to shut down family parties or so those kinds of things. We want to make sure that special events and those that consume the parks are more balanced. So that was a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Sprigg. Were you done?
Yep.
I think this is really, you guys have come back with a great report and some good documentation and some good ideas. We were kind of, well, we were split 2-2 in the mayor's absence the last time we discussed this, but I'm sensing that, you know, we're going to move forward now, which is good. I think what we've just heard is important, in defining special events is one answer to it. Implementing a new deposit at these levels for parks that may more often be used by community members, I think is a little risky. As you presented last time, it didn't quite get to this, the value of this permitting approach where you drop the special permit to 25 or more instead of 50 or more the way it is right now, is the fact that we'll collect data on who those folks are at the 25 or more for special people for special events. And I really like that approach, because over the course of a year, a whole annual cycle, seasonal cycle, we should come back again and revisit some of these fees and other points and see what's working, what's not working, where the complaints are, etc. The other thing is, I remember you presented this, Andy, last time as well, that a lot of this is driven by community member complaints about not having access to our parks because of special events taking place, or things that aren't special events, but there are just a lot of folks occupying with their activities the parks every weekend. So we I think are grappling with the other point here, that is leaving some of them open, only allowing special events maybe 1 or 2 a month in some of the locations or something like that, and I think we need to try that out and see how that works as well. A lot of this is experimental, but in light of what Valerie just said, it just seems to me that going from a $45 deposit to $1,000 or even a $500, just in case it's a special, defined as a special event, is pretty steep. And maybe we ought to look at graduated. You know, if for example it's 25 people, maybe we ought to have it 250, because the likelihood of, you know, extensive grass damage is lower than it double or more that number of people, or other kinds of costs to the city, and then 500 for the 50 or more, and possibly the same thing with the other areas. Just again to give you some data to see what works and what doesn't, so that when you come back again, we'll have information about the permitting at 25 and the different application of the deposit at 25 versus 50, etc. Which again is a rational basis for it, and that is the likelihood of additional repairs or damage or whatever with the larger group and the smaller group. So I would over to you in terms of what you think about that. And I also would ask one more question of you, Mr. Hall, and that is whether 4 months prior notice to reserve these areas, is that a new practice beyond what we're doing currently? And if it is new, is that a bit much? Would maybe 3 months or something like that achieve the same purpose for advanced planning and calendaring?
Right. That's currently what we ask for, but it seems like most people, we're lucky when they come in 4 days in advance, not 4 months. It just seems to be the way it goes. But we are typically we'll work with people on that. But we do want to establish that, hey, the earlier we know, the easier it is to schedule these. In terms
You're talking public beaches, you're talking about major events like
Right.
a triathlon.
And usually that's almost a year in advance,
Right,
most of the time and whatnot. But I think a point well taken by both Mrs. Seves and Councilman Spriggs. We can hold off. Again, we don't make money on special events. We're not even trying to. We can hold off on the fee side of it and work on whether or not it makes sense to have a graduated scale or a different scale for a special event versus a family event or something like that. We can work on that a little bit. The idea behind the deposit is not to take their money. It's to encourage them to leave the facility in good condition.
Yeah.
Right. So we can massage that a little bit and maybe come back to the city council. Again, this is an administrative part of this, so we wouldn't have to go through a hearing process or an ordinance or anything. But we'll massage this a little bit and think it through and maybe talk with members of the chamber and others and maybe come back to you with some ideas on the fee part of what we're talking about tonight. Probably a good idea.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Pat.
Yeah, the birthday parties, I've had parties for my kids both at Sports Park where you just rent a table, it's real confined. But at Veterans Park, you know, you could go there on a Saturday and Sunday and people tape off mass areas. So what is an area that somebody can have? And, you know, and so that's one concern about how big a area can you really take off. I mean, you could go there sometimes and it's just yellow tape bill. And, you know, and I get it. You want to get there, you want to have your party. I'm glad birthday parties let people have their birthday party. That's a must. As for the fees, if I'm paying a $500 fee, I'm handing over a credit card, correct?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, so I'm handing a credit card. I'm not giving cash. And if I have that credit card with the city, I'm making sure when I leave that spot, it is clean. It is taken care of. And as a responsible party giver, like I'm sure everybody in this audience is, that we make sure that we take care of our area. But unfortunately, we do get people that come to these parks that just rip, tear, leave, and with no repercussions. So I think there's a balance that needs to be found here.
Yeah, the 45 hasn't always seemed to incentivize.
No, 45 definitely. I mean, I pay 45 and I still did my job of cleaning, of course. But, you know, whatever that balance may be, you know, if it's not 500, it's 250 and whatever that may be. And then my other comment is on Dunes Park, where there may be a triathlon, a wellness fair, people with the CrossFit may be doing an event. Those are events that I'm just curious to bring it back to council every time. How are you going to do that? Just through consent? Because I don't want to get into a discussion every time that we have a new event coming, because I didn't join city council to sit up here and get in discussions every little thing.
Exactly. The idea was consent.
Yeah.
We toyed a little bit with the idea of going and getting a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Committee, and it just, boy, we don't want to put people through too much. So the idea was just consent, and if a council member happened to have a concern about it, you can pull it off consent. Otherwise, we just.
Perfect. We can just expedite everything.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bragg.
I just wanted to comment that perhaps to address the special event portion of it, that there may be a category that would be created that under family celebrations.
Right.
And then that could where a lot of these would happen. We all know this. What happens is that there are people from outside the community that come and use our parks. And they know that it's pretty easy and pretty inexpensive, and they may just, come in, damage the park, and leave, and then it's left to the taxpayers of Imperial Beach to make up the shortfall on that. I'm very happy with what you have brought forward. I think with the few minor adjustments that we have talked about, I think you've really done an excellent job here on this item. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I want to appreciate, I wasn't here for the first iteration of this, but I want to appreciate all the commitment to compromise and consensus building on this, and the real hard work of the staff and going out in the field and actually evaluating what was happening. The classic case of overuse of a public resource was La Jolla Shores, where you had like 20 or 30 surf schools that at some point just basically took over the entire public beach. It's for the public. And so the city of San Diego had to really retrench and then require for kayaking companies and surf companies all permitting process to make sure that people had access to the beach and that these private companies didn't take over the resource. And what I've seen in Imperial Beach is, right, a proliferation of events, but also a free-for-all in what people just show up literally and have their own event. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And I agree. And there's a difference between a triathlon and a family party. So I think all that attempt to balance that and make sure we reflect the economic interest of our city families is great. So that's all I wanted to say. But I want to thank this council and our staff for trying to figure this out, but also going out in the field and really trying to see what was happening and understanding that most folks are doing great, but there's been a lot of folks that have basically taken advantage of our generosity and our public resources. Then it's us, the public, that loses out. So anyway, great. With that, I would like to entertain a motion to direct staff to implement the recommendation of the Parks and Rec Committee as established in the staff report and introduce ordinance number 2017-1165, amending chapter 12.33 of the IB Municipal Code, special events permit by title only, and waive further reading of the ordinance. Please vote.
Mr. Mayor, I need to read the title first.
Yes, I did. I wrote it again. I'm sorry, I'm failing.
That's
I
okay.
get a C. I'm giving myself a C-, and my Yelp rating is going down.
Ordinance number 2017-1165, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, amending Chapter 12.33 of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code concerning special events.
Please vote. Apparently my Yelp rating went up, but anyway, okay. All right, public hearings 4.1. Public hearing to consider an ordinance to further extend interim urgency ordinance number 2017-1160 of the city. I'm blowing it again. Sorry, guys.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, item 4.1, number 2017-1116, imposing a temporary moratorium on commercial non-medical marijuana activities in the city of IB in the light of the passage of Prop 64. Public hearing open. Assistant City Manager Dish will give the report. Just give me a report. Yeah. Jennifer. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure. Would you like me to give the report? I do believe there's a few public comments. Okay.
Right.
So Mayor and Council, as we've discussed previously, this is the item to extend the city's moratorium on commercial cannabis activities to give staff and the ad hoc City Council committee time to finish its work. The moratorium, if the council extends it through action tonight and at the next meeting, it'll be lifted when the city's final regulations take effect. So it won't necessarily extend the whole year. It'll be lifted at the time the new regulations go into effect. City staff expects to present regulations in the first quarter of 2018. And this will be an introduction and waiving the full reading of the ordinance. And it is ordinance 2017-1170. The staff report has a lot more details and specifics. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Great. We have some public comments here. Jovita Ariano from the Institute of Public Strategy. Here. Okay.
Good evening, council members and honorable mayor. My name is Jovita Ariano and I work for the Institute for Public Strategy. I'm a senior prevention specialist and we work in public health. And I'm a longtime South Bay resident here and we work in the city of Imperial Beach. IPS facilitates the South Bay Community Change Project, which focuses on protecting communities from the harms and often associated with alcohol and other drugs. We also facilitate the South Bay Youth for Change Project, which engages youth in preventing alcohol and drug problems through civic engagement. Right now, we have 23 students at Mar Vista High that's involved in our project. IPS will always support the decisions that made by the city officials yourself, based on your knowledge of what is best for Imperial Beach, regardless whether it's an extension of a moratorium or a future plan and for permitting and regulating marijuana businesses. Our goal isn't to address whether or not marijuana legalization is a good idea or a bad idea, but to help policymakers such as yourself understand the decisions they face, that you might face, and some lessons learned from our research on public health approaches to regulating alcohol and tobacco over the past century. So history indicates the top public health concerns that should be considered when making decisions about marijuana use. Number one is the youth access and availability, drug driving, dependence and addiction, consumption of marijuana products with unwanted and an uncertain potency, overdoses, which are often associated with edibles and primarily experienced by youth, concurrent use of marijuana and alcohol, marijuana use in public settings, marketing and advertising practices of marijuana businesses. There's a general agreement among public health researchers that if a jurisdiction is going to experiment with something other than a moratorium, a restrictive regulatory approach is preferred. And if this is considered an option in the future, IPS is available to provide an explanation of the best regulatory practices based on research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would encourage you, if you'd like to follow up, to contact our city manager about any meeting you'd like to have with him or the assistant city manager or subcommittee.
Yes, I'll
Really
do that
welcome your
tomorrow.
feedback.
I'll call your offices.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Appreciate all the great work you do for Imperial Beach.
Thank you.
Now I have Mr. Boyd. I just want to make sure you're donating your time to Laura Wilkinson. Is that right? Okay. Laura Wilkinson. And I'm going to give you a little bit of extra time, but you don't need 6 minutes, do you? You just need, I'm sorry? Maybe just cut it down even more.
I will cut it as
less is
quickly as
more.
I can. Less is always more.
Yeah.
I understand.
So yeah, if you can do 3 minutes, that's even better for us. But
Okay.
anyway,
I know it's a long
and
night.
it's better for you as well.
Okay. Thank you. Greetings, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and city staff. My name is Laura Wilkinson Sinton. I live in the Cays, and I spend a lot of money and time here in Imperial Beach. My kids spent every summer at surf camp, and my grandkids will too very soon. I was a San Diego radio DJ, SDSU grad, and former LA County lifeguard. I have naval aviators all over my family. I'm affiliated with a legally licensed dispensary and cultivation business in Bend, Oregon, along with my brother and business partner who lived in Bonita for 20 years and raised his families there. My parents lived in Frederica Manor here in Chula Vista for a number of years before their passing, and I say all of that to tell you that my roots run deep here. This is what a cannabis dispensary business person looks like. I know there are a lot of fallacies out there and there are a lot of images, but this is one right here, living in your own community. This is what we look like. I want to dispel a couple of myths about the product and certainly to address the public health issues too, because that's a concern for the industry. I'm a member of the National Cannabis Industry Association. I do not represent them here tonight, but I have access to the data and a lot of the governance that they've been working with Sacramento with. There have been no reported deaths from cannabis overdose ever. That information is from the Drug Enforcement Agency, and that is over decades. Yet in the next 7 days in the US, 1,700 will die from excessive alcohol use, 1,000 from prescription drug overdoses, 10 will die from a fatal overdose of Tylenol, which many of us have in our medical cabinets at home. These substances are legal and sold every single day here in Imperial Beach. Cannabis is now legal in 30 of our United States, as you may know. Adult recreational use legal in 8, plus our nation's capital, the District of Columbia. There are over 225 cannabis-related corporations publicly traded right now on the US stock market, developing technology, biopharma, agriculture, physical security, software, infused products, extracts, and more. Even global powerhouses like Siemens are in the business. They've developed advanced grow technologies for cannabis cultivation. What it does is it holds great promise for economic flourishment here and economic enhancement. Medicinal benefits are proven, non-opioid pain relief, the kind that helped my own mom when she was dying of MS at Frederica Manor. It's also proven for insomnia, depression, anxiety patients like my uncle, retired US Navy Lieutenant Commander and stroke victim Alan Wilkinson, who now uses transdermal cannabis patches for his anxiety. Joint pain, anorexia, HIV/AIDS relief, palliative care for cancer patients. 7-year-old Haley Cox of Georgia is one of scores of children with life-threatening seizures that are now treated with cannabis, and that's why the laws are changing. Even the VA secretary issued policy in the last month affirming that veterans using cannabis for PTSD and other maladies will not lose their VA benefits nor be punished. Even the American Legion, who has a gorgeous building here, by the way, has called on the federal government for the last year to support and enable scientific research on the medicinal value of cannabis. Cannabis, in short, alleviates suffering. The concern with commercial is that early research, the crime factor is something that really concerns a lot of people. The earliest research out right now shows reduced crime in commercial cannabis areas. There are no long-term studies. This is so new in the United States, but there are long-term studies underway already with allocated funds from the state of California to confirm statistical accuracy. They believe that the reduced crime rates are attributed to squeezing out the underground black markets, just as the 21st Amendment did to organized crime in the 30s. Cannabis possession arrests and prosecutions have disproportionately affected people of color, and we know Prop 64 seeks to address that. Legal cannabis industry will also be a major employer in municipalities across California at above market pay rates. Today's cannabis business is highly regulated, it is ethical, it is professional, and the products are rigorously tested. The cannabis business is no longer head shops, bongs, and black light posters. It really isn't. Legal cannabis dispensaries facilitate access to responsible patients and responsible consumers while protecting public health and safety and preserving the family atmospheres and unique cultures that communities like IB are famous for. All products are tested for potency and dosage by third-party certified laboratories, and that is by state of California mandate prior to any distribution or sale. All the plants will be in California's track and trace software system, literally from seed to sale and tightly controlled. It is safe. I've seen it work in Oregon, and it works. Sources affirming all the facts I put forth tonight, plus tax revenue estimates and comparisons, links for products, dispensaries, and even the newly funded by the state of California, UCSD New Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research, I have in a handout for each of you here. You have very talented city staff. The assistant city manager, Stephen, and the city manager, Andy, have been terrific. They've been very gracious in meeting with me over the last several weeks regarding data and industry best practice, along with Councilman West. I want to acknowledge all of them for being so open and understanding and trying to seek the data here. You do have an extraordinary opportunity before you. You truly do. 62% of your constituents voted in favor of Prop 64, and they trust that you will allow them access. And your stewardship and regulatory guidance will help allay the concerns of the other 38% that still live in this community and have concerns until they actually witness what it looks like in practice. The fees and taxes will more than pay for your raises, I assure you, and travel. And the pro forma that I included in here shows up to hundreds of thousands of revenue in year one with comparison to other cities. That could be used for schools, for the library, for public health and safety, which the state of California will have additional grants for, or any community that license and permits any form of commercial cannabis activity. Yes, I will. I will.
You have that.
No. I'm so sorry. You have this great opportunity. I've seen it flourish elsewhere. I suggest that you, and I implore you really, to seize and control this opportunity first before the city of San Diego siphons it off by putting 4 in Nestor, which they could easily do right at the city line to fill their own tax coffers, and the revenue that you could have here for the city of Imperial Beach and tightly controlling your own regulations would take care of your wish list. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your thoughtful consideration.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Great. No more public speakers. I don't have anybody. Are you guys going to speak? Yeah. Mr. Briggs.
I think this is, the simple question here is, do we extend the moratorium or not?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not about.
It's not about the merits.
Right.
It's not about what kind of program we ought to have here, if any, whatever. It's just giving us time for the subcommittee to complete its work. So I think it's a pretty straightforward decision. And, you know, I think we should go for the full year as our city attorney recommends. We don't need to use that whole time if we come up with something sooner, but it does give us the maximum opportunity to come up with something that's in the best interest of our community. So I'm in favor of the continuation of the moratorium as proposed.
Great. Okay. Let me do that. Let me close the public hearing. I'm closing the public hearing. I'm going to do this correctly. Madam Clerk is going to read the title of the ordinance first. Thank you.
Ordinance
Ending now. I'm doing a little better here.
Ordinance number 2017-1170, an ordinance to further extend interim urgency ordinance number 2017-1160 of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, pursuant to Government Code Section 65858, imposing a temporary moratorium on commercial, non-medical marijuana activities in the City of Imperial Beach in light of the passage of Proposition 64.
Great. Is there a motion?
And I'll second.
Please vote.
And it would be a motion to introduce and waive full reading. Thank you.
Thanks.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great. Last item, item 5.1, and this is a discussion from the City Council regarding potential separation of the IB Chamber of Commerce and the BID. Mr. Hall will give the report. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, staff is coming to you for some direction tonight. We received some recommendations from both the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District Board. Want to talk to you a little bit about those. Seek some direction, but we're not asking the City Council to take any final action tonight, but rather get some direction and then come back to you with some potential solutions. A quick, and again, as you see in the title, a very quick background on the Business Improvement District, because there's certainly a lot of convoluted paths that it has followed. But essentially, the Business Improvement District was formed in 1997. So it's been around now for about 20 years. The businesses located in most of the commercial zones are assessed annually, and they are charged with, they can acquire, construct, or maintain parking facilities, decorate any public space, promote public events which take place in public places, furnish music or entertainment in any public space, or the general promotion of business activity. So funds are collected in the district for these very specific things, and that's in the ordinance that created and enabled the Business Improvement District. Now, the latest agreement that we have between the city and the Chamber of Commerce / Business Improvement District Board / Association, and there's I think all of you understand that, but just assuming we do, that the association or the chamber through an independent association shall administer the daily functions of the district. The association will expend funds consistent with the ordinance and the agreement with the city. That's the items we just went through. And then the city has some obligations. The city will collect the assessment and distribute the funds to the association. And the city will review and approve an annual budget of the association. And then there's a bunch of other legal mumbo jumbo. And that's a technical term that Jennifer taught me this afternoon. But there came forward after several discussions. This has been going on a little while. I think, again, we don't need to relive it because I think the city council is all aware of this issue. But there were some recommendations that came forward from some of these groups. I received a recommendation from the Chamber of Commerce to separate the activities of the Chamber and the BID Board and to dissolve the Business Improvement District. Now, I want to make a note that the City Council doesn't have the purview to separate these functions. These are functions of the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has their main board, and they have the Business Improvement District Board. You don't have any authority to separate those. So I think that there's a misnomer that you can. That's not the point here tonight. They are asking that those two functions be separated and then that the business district be dissolved. The business improvement, that's what the chamber is asking for. That's correct. The Business Improvement District Board is asking to separate the activities of the chamber and the BID, to retain the Business Improvement District and expend funds consistent with the enabling ordinance. Again, those items that we identified. And then to provide 50% of the annual BID funds to the chamber for at least the next year to allow a financial adjustment period. Because at least right now, with the bylaws of the Chamber of Commerce, 50% of the funds that are generated in the district go to the Chamber of Commerce for some of their Business Improvement District activities as well. Some of those items that are on that list. So staff tried to come up with some options for the City Council to consider. One would be that you could recognize the separation of the Chamber of the BID Board and dissolve the Business Improvement District. That's certainly an option the council could take. Recognize the separation of the Chamber and the BID Board and authorize the creation of a new advisory board of the Business Improvement District. You could take that. Or you could recognize the separation of the chamber and the BID, and you could assign the Chamber of Commerce to assume the administrative functions of the Business Improvement District. These certainly aren't all the options, but there are 3 viable options that have been suggested or talked about. Before we leave, I just want to make sure that the staff gets the opportunity to thank both the chamber and the BID for their activities. They do a lot for our business community. It's important that we thank them. They are all volunteers at this point in time. They volunteer their time, their talents, and they do a lot for our community. And it's at a time when we need them. We're talking about relinquishing Highway 75. We're having a lot of businesses move into town. Our existing businesses need support more than ever to make sure that they remain competitive as new businesses move into the community. So the need for the chamber and the Business Improvement District to be successful are maybe never been more important in our community. So we just want to recognize their efforts and appreciate what they do. We wanted to present those recommendations to the council again for some discussion, some direction, and maybe there's some other options that staff hasn't identified, but just to get some direction so that we can maybe put some closure to what has become a little bit of a tense issue between several parties, and just want to make sure that we're all moving forward. Yeah. Okay.
Great. We have public comment. We have a letter from Tim O'Neill, who wasn't here, and he does support the separation of the Chamber of Commerce and the BID. It's a very lengthy letter. I won't go into detail on it. I want to thank him for his letter. So that's very helpful. With another one? Oh, John, I'm sorry. Yeah. We have another one from Candy Unger. Okay, and Candy Unger supports the recommendation of staff to prepare the resolution to implement a separation of the current quote association should be approved. This would be the best way to start a process where our BID members have a voice to vote on it directly. Okay, great. Appreciate well-argued letters and feedback we get. Marcus Boyd. Thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, council and city staff. I'm Marcus Boyd, 1237 Palm Avenue. I've been a member of the BID and I think by default the chamber, at least for some time, since 2003. I have to ask that this council give some consideration, which I haven't heard mentioned yet, that should be considered, and that is, it appears since I've been here that the BID and the chamber, by extension, kind of narrowly focused their inclusion with the BID. And I know for a fact that there are business owners that aren't even really aware that they're part of the BID. So I would like to see an outreach, maybe for a year, and I'd like to volunteer my own service to help with that, to bring in more of the business owners that are interested parties on Palm and within the business district, and give the BID a chance to be a business improvement development organization. I don't think it has been up to now. It's kind of been driven by a select few, and they have kept their focus to their goals. So I think a chance with the members controlling the organization would be beneficial, and I have been asked to extend those same requests by the chair of the BID now, which is Tracy Rivera. Thank you for your time.
So I want to make sure it's a very complicated issue. You're arguing is that you do support the separation of the chamber and the BID and possibly some new structure to have a more inclusive and extend more geographically
specifically
representative
an outreach.
Right. Okay. But outreach. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Karen Odermatt.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and our city manager. My name is Karen Odermatt, and I live at 780 7th Street. This is not really my thing to get up here and say I don't like something or I like something more. I really like to be positive and talk about all the things that the chamber is doing with our Military Appreciation Day, all of our events. But unfortunately, I have to get up here and say, I don't like the way some things are being run right now. So I'm the immediate past president of the chamber. When I joined the chamber back in 2012, I was not even aware there was a bid. I didn't even know what a bid was. I joined the chamber because I thought it was a good way to get involved in the city and make a small difference. I had no idea what the Business Improvement District was about. I have since learned the Business Improvement District was formed through an assessment on storefront businesses, which Andy's gone through all this stuff, but I already wrote this, so I'm going to read it anyway. Storefront businesses in the designated area of the city of Imperial Beach, which is known as the district. Funds are collected by the city through business licenses and dispersed to the BID. The BID keeps 50% of these funds and distributes 50% of funds collected to the Chamber of Commerce, which pays for office staff and expenses. The other 50% kept by the bid can be spent on 5 things and 5 things only, per the agreement, which Andy has said: the acquisition, construction of, or maintenance of parking facilities for the benefit of the district, decoration of any public place in the district, promotion of public events which are to take place on or in public places in the district, furnishing of music in any public place in the district, and the general promotion of business activities in the district. So I think that what may be a little bit different than you said is that these funds that are gotten have to go to things that are in the district. So you can't, you know, collect funds and go and promote something that's not in the district. Okay, right in the district. So prior to 2013, things seemed to run smoothly. The bid distributed 50% of the funds to the chamber for administrative oversight and spent money on approved items, like Christmas decorations were purchased, flags were purchased, music was provided in the park during summer months, and Paint the Box was an active program. In 2013, things changed. Bid chairs decided to run bid their way and not follow any guidelines. Brochures were paid for, but never distributed. Bike racks were purchased with no authority and subsequently sold to a bid member. And money spent in 2016 on business district programs was over $2,300 on a meet and greet for bid members at the new hotel, of which the bid chair was the manager. And finally, in 2016, the chamber was sued, along with the city and the bid, for actions taken by then chairman of the bid. Bid chairs have begun using the bid forum for their own personal agendas, always different, not in alignment with the mission statement of the Chamber of Commerce. The bid has not been able to reach a quorum in the last few months. I know that Marcus had mentioned that they want. Oh, darn.
Wrap it up. So.
Okay. So anyway.
And then just let us know what you want us to do.
I totally support Valerie Aceves.
Wait.
I support the separation of the bid. Okay.
Thank you so much.
And I support, Valerie has the third option up here, which was the chamber take it over. We're
Great.
here to help you.
All right, thank you. And we have Valerie Aceves.
Thank you again. I'm pretty much the newest member of the Chamber of Commerce. I had to catch up really quickly as to what's been going on over the last 4 years, but I'm pretty well caught up with that. The Imperial Beach Chamber of Commerce has had an ongoing difference of opinion for many years on how the bid should be administered. The Chamber's mission is not compatible at this time with the BIDs. The bid has recommended to us a few changes they want to make to the Chamber to make things compatible for them. With what the bid is requesting would put a serious financial strain on the Chamber. The bid over the last 4 years has not been able to keep a chairman for any length of time. The bid has not met many of the quorums to be able to properly administer the funds over the last 4 years. The bid has used the bylaws and resolutions to their own agendas at the cost of the chamber on several occasions. The bid has brought a lawsuit against them, which turned out that, and the bid has not followed their own rules and regulations and run the bid as they choose. The Imperial Beach Chamber is asking that a third option be available. The IB Chamber would like to take over the administration of the bid. New rules and bylaws would need to be made to accomplish these goals or go through the current bylaws and resolutions and amend as needed. The IB Chamber currently pays all bills related to the Chamber and the bid. Through our CPA, the Chamber handles all the daily business for the Chamber and the BID related to phone service, supplies, rent, and more. The BID has no other responsibilities than administering the funds when requested from the member. I believe with a few changes to the current bylaws and the resolution that there can be a better control of the bid funds and give access to the members that in the past has been minimal. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
one more thing. Crap, I now it went out. Oh well, thank you.
Great, thanks. Thanks to all the public speakers and all the input there. That's it with public speakers, right? No other cards? Great. Mr. Spriggs?
Well, as I said to her on our way into our seats, I think Lori's really the expert. Councilmember Bragg is really the expert on the history and the goings on our council. So I would really defer to her as far as looking at the options here. Sorry to put you on the spot. Sure you. Yeah, I think so. So I just had some clarifying questions to ask our city attorney. Right now, the assessment is for all businesses in Imperial Beach, or which businesses are covered and which aren't? Are brand new businesses, say a new restaurant opening up or a new hotel on Seacoast Drive, are they in the bid? Just some parameters on who's in and who's not.
Sure. I'm
That's
not
the
an
first
expert on the parameters other than there's an ordinance and it sets forth geographical locations in the city, and those are the businesses that are charged. But I don't, it's
the district.
The
But
district,
what is the
yeah,
district?
the district primarily consumes all of the commercial zones in the city. So Palm Avenue, Old Palm Avenue, Seacoast Drive. There are some commercial areas that are not included, but they're very limited. And they do it by address. That's why it's a little bit different. It wasn't done by map, it was done by address, and there's an address essentially for every street address that's in the district. But it's essentially the commercial corridors of the city.
Just a couple more questions. Is the assessment based on lot size, income, or some other factor?
yeah, types of businesses.
It's by business type.
General retail, financial and entertainment, services and professionals, etc.
Okay. Third question. The chamber has, I believe, 501c3 or other nonprofit status and a board and bylaws and a structure of officers, board members, etc. It's set up to do business. If they were separated, your second paragraph here and what's in front of us suggests that there would need to be some infrastructure, legal infrastructure created for the bid, which is my understanding as well, that they'd need 501, some sort of status. They would need a board and bylaws and some structure if they were going to operate independently of the chamber. Just the creation of a new advisory board handpicked by somebody, I'm not sure that that's really what would be in order if they were responsible for administering these funds on their own as a separate entity. Is that accurate?
Okay, so the law requires, when the council sets up a business improvement district, requires there to be an advisory board to administer the business improvement district. Way back when in 97, the city council appointed the chamber as its advisory board.
Right.
I've seen other cities that the city council appoints a board and then city staff helps administer the business improvement district with that advisory board that sometimes is made up of, the council can choose the makeup of that, but sometimes it's it's a 5-member board and they're appointed based on the fact that they are business owners. So that would be an option. I'm not sure about all of the logistics of, the bid right now is a subchapter of the chamber.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the current makeup maybe of whoever the bid board is within the chamber. I'm not sure of what kind of structure they're contemplating. So we would have to investigate that to determine if that's, how we can do the funds to them.
I see. So there would need to be some further work regarding what the structure of an independent bid, if that was the decision, what would it be, and we'd have to come back and look at that.
Absolutely. As Andy said, this is not final action tonight, but we need some direction from council because lots of steps need to be taken. There's currently an agreement in place, so we talk about either modifying that or terminating that, depending on the direction of the council, and investigate if you are going to create a new board. Essentially, if the bid is no longer going to be a chapter of the chamber, then and you want to use that group, you would then be appointing them as your advisory board, and then we would have to figure out the logistics of that operation, of whether they're just a board of the city or are they their own independent organization.
So I will reserve any comments on the merits of any of these options until after hearing from my colleague. Thank you very much for answering those questions.
And I don't blame her. I don't blame her. No, I don't blame her. And I see this going on for numerous meetings. This is a tough topic. And every time we have somebody from the bid come up and speak, or Chamber, by the way, has definitely stepped up their game and have been doing a great job from what I've seen. Thank you. Is there anybody from the bid here to speak? Or are they outside waiting? Or did we get a card from anybody from the bid to speak?
Councilman Patton, I did get an email today from the chair of the BID. She is out of the state and unable to attend tonight. Well, all of the business owners in the bid are part of the bid. The chamber has a subset of its board that is the BID board.
So, Mr. Hall, can you go into the business improvement district recommendation? Can you kind of break that down in a nutshell, kind of so the audience gets hear about what they want to do with the 2017 funds, and then what would happen after 20? I mean, what's going on there? I could read into it pretty well, but can you?
But for next year,
And in your opinion, can the chamber run with no money coming in? Or is that something I could ask the president? Could you step up and because I've heard a couple things. We don't need the money. We could do this as volunteers. And then in my mind, I think everybody needs money.
Well, I mean, money is money. If it's there, great. The part of the issue is that they took it away from us. Tracy decided that we didn't need it and so took it. So at that point, I said, well, then we don't need to be together. There's no reason for us to be together. We're arguing, we're fighting. I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to be the chamber. I just want to take care of the business people. Our group, the chamber, that's what we're doing. We're ignoring what's going on with the BID right now, just doing what we need to do. We are not getting any money right now because the funds are in limbo until something's and we're doing fine. We have about 30,000 in the bank right now. And our membership has gone up. We just got Brigantine yesterday. So, we're in a position of, we're meeting our clients, we're visiting our clients, we're having them join. Our breakfasts are going up. We're doing what we need to do.
They're joining the chamber
with their funds
because you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face.
Oh yeah,
so, you know what I
we're
mean?
going after those members.
Okay, you're going after them.
We're going after those members. So we feel that we realized what was going to happen, so we started upping our game, and I think we're doing well.
And what's your opinion on the bids recommendation? What Andy, Mr. Hall, what's your thought on?
Are you talking about them separating and being off on their own? They've not been able to do it in 4 years. I'm not sure how they're going to do it right now. We do all their work. We take care of everything. They just have to come to a meeting And then so when we went to do the meetings for the separation, I contacted every one of my chamber members. I sent out a message, we're having a special agenda. I asked Tracy, did you contact your members? They said, no, I didn't have time. So I feel like the chamber is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but I feel like the bid is not, but I'm not the bid. So that they have to stand up and say what they've done. That makes right. I'm only telling you what we've done as the chamber. I've done everything I can. I was the president for 5 minutes when I got attacked at a meeting. And we just can't do that. We have to be a group together and do what's right for the community, or we have to separate and go our own way.
Well, thank you for that. I feel like there's a couple puzzle pieces now in place. Like slowly, I think we could get these puzzle pieces in place, and we could put the puzzle together. So there's 2 pieces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe 3.
Councilmember Bragg. Mr. West, you didn't press anything, did you? Okay, good. Okay. I thought, make sure I thought I had erased somebody.
Thank you. And it's unfortunate that this podium is in front of the people I would like to address. And perhaps at a future meeting, this podium will find a better home, because I've brought this up before.
Okay.
Now, thank you. I was hoping that's
perhaps
what
in
would
another
happen.
city.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
You've so been instructed. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Note for the record.
Councilmember Spriggs, thank you for your kind words. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert on the chamber or the Business Improvement District, but I do have a lot of experience at being a board member and the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce for 8 years. So probably 12 years of my life was donated to the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District. To answer one of your questions about the fee schedule for the assessees, if you are really close to the center of the action, like Seacoast Drive, you're going to pay a little bit more than somebody who is maybe way up on 13th Street. So those fees range from, I think, $120 down to $60. So geographically, almost, I would say, every business in the city of Imperial Beach is assessed. One of the main reasons why the Business Improvement District was formed was because, okay, I see 3 people sitting there, okay? And I'm not talking about you personally, I'm talking to you as facetious business owners. So let's say business owner number 1 over here on the right paid into the Chamber of Commerce. She paid her dues, she went to meetings, she hosted Sundowner, she was on it. Business owner number 3 over here, okay, that's you, Nellie. You're doing the same thing. She's joining the chamber, she's going to meetings, she comes to council meetings, she's at it, she's on the board, she's on subcommittees of the board. She works her membership, she networks her membership. And they're kind of close by, these 3 businesses. Business member number 3 is in the middle. She doesn't join the chamber, she doesn't pay dues, she doesn't go to meetings, she doesn't do anything. But she reaps the benefits of what these other 2 businesses are doing. And that's why the Chamber of Commerce decided to initiate a business improvement district, so that every business in this community paid into the betterment of this community. So, but again, it was on a derivative basis based on how close to the middle of the action you were. So that's the reasoning why. It was not an easy thing to do. It took the better part of a year. It took an entire committee. What we had to present to the city council at that time was a commitment from 51 businesses that stated they wanted to be assessed. They wanted to be part of the rising tide that floats all boats that Dan Malcolm always talks about. So what's lacking before me tonight is documentation from the Chamber of Commerce board that this action was taken at a board meeting. Who voted for it? What was the outcome of that vote? I see no documentation from the BID board saying we want to dissolve. So what I'm hearing is a couple of people here want to do this and a couple of people there want to do that. So if it took 51 businesses in this community to establish a business improvement district, it would seem to me that a great number, maybe 51 businesses, would have to tell me we don't want it anymore, or at least the documentation. I'm seeing no financial documentation of the Chamber of Commerce. If there is, you know, I'd love to see the financials. I'd love to see a business model on how you would proceed without these funds if it was to be diminished. I do have a problem with the chamber taking over the business improvement district because a major portion of those board members are not BID assessees. And that's why the BID had its own membership, because the people who were assessed would vote on how those funds were going to be spent. So you could have a member of SDG&E say, well, I want it spent this way. They're not a BID assessee. What gives them the right to tell the BID how to spend the money? So there would have to be a major reconfiguration of the board. When it was originally set up, there was one board, and it was the Chamber of Commerce board, and a portion of those members were BID assessees. And Ms. Aceves, you had told me that you're already moving in that direction, that you are having meetings together, and that's what used to happen. There was one board meeting a month, and that was for BID members and chamber members. And I hate to use the old term, but you put all the liars in the same room. And then there's one story, there's one meeting, and then the majority of the people say, well, that's what I heard, not this. Well, I was at this meeting and I heard that, and I was at this meeting and I heard that. No, there is somebody there. Everybody's there. I did take exception to what Mr. Van Zant said earlier, that the chamber could be an all-volunteer board and be a virtual chamber. I don't believe that. I think that the residents, and more importantly, or just as importantly, the visitors to this community need a brick and mortar building. That's one of the things that a chamber does. That is, if I'm a visitor and I walk in and I say, well, where's a good place to eat? Where's a good place to get insurance? Where's a good place to do this? That's what your chamber does. It's a referral agency to its members. So I think that that would be hard to accomplish. The other reason for having a paid executive director, that's a paid, dedicated person who administers to the needs of the community, takes direction from the board, and implements the policies that the board votes on. So I'm kind of at a loss still on where to go with this. There are, as Mr. Patton said, there are some pieces of this puzzle that are not complete. I understand your desire to separate from the Chamber of Commerce. I understand their desire to separate, or the BID's desire to separate from the Chamber. Maybe I said that backwards. The BID and the Chamber of Commerce was never meant to be exclusionary. In fact, the exact opposite. It was designed to include every business and every business owner in this community. And I have to say that the worst indictment I have heard is that I didn't know there was a business improvement district. I didn't know there was a Chamber of Commerce. And we hear that a lot. So, and that's not an attack, a personal attack on you. I mean, you guys, we have had many conversations over this over the years, so I understand what you're going through. I'm just not sure that we're there yet to do the separation until, like I said, for me personally, I would need to see the documentation. And as Mr. Boyd stated, there needs to be a lot of outreach, to proven outreach and proven. We had to provide signature cards to the city council, proven signature cards signed that, yes, I no longer want to pay this fee, and the reasons why. So some workshops are definitely in place, on the ground, you know, boots to the ground outreach is going to have to be had.
I think if you
Yeah, please answer any questions. Give us any guidance you can.
Okay, we had an actual special meeting on the separation of the bid, and during the bid, it was said to do, or during the chamber meeting, they also wanted to dissolve the bid, which was voted on as well. We know that we may not have that right to do that, but the separation was the biggest part of that meeting, and I can get that information to you. I can get you the financials for the chamber. The reason that we haven't really pushed what Jack's talking about virtual is that in the meantime, we've cleaned up a lot of the stuff that was not right, that wasn't working, that would not make us viable as a chamber. We've cleaned up all that. Phones are being answered. I meet with clients at the office. We have conversations. I have had phone calls. What's going to happen if that tsunami comes to, Imperial Beach? How to call a fire guy. He told me, I told her. So we are doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. We do have an office. We just got given a 30-day notice. So we are moving to another location. We need to find a permanent location. That has been very hard to find in Imperial Beach right now with the economics, because it's expensive to rent right now. So, we have to stay in a $1,000 range, and there's just nothing out there in that range. So we're still looking for that. We have found a spot to go to in the interim. So we are still working on that. So we know what needs to be fixed. We know there has to be an executive director. And as I had said earlier,
I just want to interrupt. I think the point of this, we're getting off topic, is not to discuss the operational
Okay.
integrity and strategic planning for the chamber. I want to make sure this is about the separation of the chamber and the bid. So I appreciate how this is, all that in discussion. I
Okay,
want to make sure we get back to
So
on
that
time.
if that could be provided to us potentially at another meeting or whatever, the minutes of that meeting where that happened, the minutes of the BID meeting where that board voted to dissolve and separate from the Chamber of Commerce. So the documentation that I'm talking about is missing.
okay, we have that.
Perfect.
So we can get that. And do I just email it, or we?
I would prefer hard copies delivered to the city clerk, and then each council member can have a hard copy as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Wait, are you done? I do want more. Mr. West?
It's I've seen business improvement districts who are very effective. When I lived up in North Park, the business improvement district in North Park was extremely successful in really revitalized that part of the community. And now it's the beer avenue of 30th Street and is the beer avenue of America. And I find it, and they, they're completely separate from the chamber. So I see that there could be a potential for this. And but I too feel very strongly, Councilmember Bragg is you are the living history about this, so you know it. And I feel a lot of the things that she's saying are very accurate. And one of the, when you said you had a meeting and we talked about the minutes, from my understanding from the discussion was that there weren't very many bid people in the meeting either. So, okay, but I thought you said that Tracy wasn't able to didn't put out the information to everybody, so there was nobody from the bid there.
Right.
So it lacked attendance is what it lacked their participation in really. So I think I am nowhere near the level of comfort with this that I can separate either one of these organizations, because I feel that Imperial Beach is on the premises right now. We are going to be in just my time. You guys have done some amazing things and come a long way, but there's still, I keep hearing rumblings about crazy things happen at the chamber, which make me extremely nervous when I was very beginning of my council here. So I am not at the point where I think we need to take a trial period and look at this and really, get some participation, workshops, talk to each other so we can, because we are going to need to protect our local businesses, because businesses are going to be coming out. This is going to be coming in here. People are going to be buying stuff and just really taking it away from us. So we need to protect our local businesses in many ways, and bids usually do that. So I think my level of comfort right now with separation is not at that point. I think we need to have some more workshops together so we can figure out the path forward for this, because it may be the right thing to do, but I'm just not sure we're there yet.
One of the complexities here was alluded to by City Manager Hall, and that is the relationship between the city and city council and each of these entities is different. We really don't have any jurisdiction whatsoever, and correct me please if I'm wrong, over the Chamber of Commerce. However, we are the responsible government body that approves the bid budget, what it goes for in a report they're supposed to submit, and that annually approves the continuation of the assessment on the business. So we have a different legal and maybe fiduciary. We've talked about that, whether we do or not, but we have a different kind of legal relationship with the bid than we do the chamber. And so we're drawn into this. We need to just keep our minds on this separation. We're drawn into this discussion because we're kind of umbilically linked to the bid, but you know, we don't really want to get into you guys' business, you know, because that's not really our business.
I feel very strongly about that. It's not the government's job to tell the chamber what to do or how to do it. It's,
right.
and I feel a little awkward this conversation. So and thank you for bringing that back.
I'm just trying to clarify.
We do have jurisdiction over the BID, so I think we might make sure we focus on that. And yeah, that's a nonprofit. It's a legally constituted nonprofit. We have no jurisdiction or even any right to tell you how to do your business unless somehow we're giving you money. Councilmember Reck.
I was wondering, did the separation issue come up at this time because they were hopeful that they could get this done before January 1 when business licenses go out? Was that a consideration? Okay.
So I'm going to bring this back to, thank you, Councilmember Spriggs, for bringing up the heart of this issue, and that is the Chamber of Commerce is a legally constituted 501c3 that's run by its board of directors. It's a legal entity regulated by the state of California. And thank you, Valerie, for that really open and honest and transparent discussion saying, you guys are doing what every nonprofit needs to do, and that's to be self-sustaining, and you're growing, and you're confident in your capacity to do that. It was actually a really refreshing and honest discussion. So I appreciate that, and I've seen you grow. There's a second thing, and that's the jurisdictional responsibility, or the fiduciary responsibility of this city council and the city government, which is sanctioned by the state of California, to oversee monies that we collect from legally constituted businesses in the city, and then approve a spending plan and then disperse back. I'm very uncomfortable. Since I was elected mayor, extremely uncomfortable with the lack of oversight and the lack of management and the lack of control on the part of this city of funds that are collected from business owners and somehow get caught up in this what seems to be a never-ending source of conflict. I like the idea of number 2, and what I'd like to do is make sure that we eliminate the source of conflict and make sure that the city dissolves itself from any oversight of the chamber and takes control of monies that are collected from business owners, and that we collect, and more importantly, have some more, I guess, of a management oversight that might include some sort of advisory board and different structure of business owners involved, as well as possibly a council member, et cetera, so that monies that we're collecting, we can and may possibly manage, so we can make sure that those monies are actually spent effectively, and we can guarantee that there wasn't any mismanagement of those funds. I felt very strongly about that since I was elected mayor, and more importantly, the feedback I've gotten from business owners is that they felt the same way, and that's nothing to do with the chamber. It's just more that I feel like that's our responsibility as people that are elected to this post, and more importantly, and we have an honor or a responsibility if we collect money to make sure it's spent correctly. So I would support, I don't even know if it's separation of the chamber, but basically having the city of Imperial Beach reconstitute control over the business improvement district and come up with a new advisory board so that the city of Imperial Beach works with business owners to manage and disperse funds that are collected, the city of Imperial Beach collects. That's what I think should happen, or in fact, we'd have to dissolve it. But I'm very uncomfortable with the structure we have now. And I think the chamber needs to be on its own. So you don't have to come for us for any, you don't want the government to tell you what to do. You don't want us to tell you how to spend your money. That's your relationship with business owners. But if we collect funds from business owners and we're responsible for approving it, then we should have some oversight and partnership with the business community on how to disperse it. That's a separate function from the chamber. So that's I'd like to go to that point. I have felt for some time, so the 3 years I've been on this body, that I'm very uncomfortable with the transparency and accountability of funds that we're collecting from business owners. And that has, again, nothing to do with the chambers. As someone who runs a nonprofit, I can tell you, you guys have the Chamber of Commerce has a mission, and it should follow its mission. When you're a fiscal sponsor for an agency or an organization, it only creates problems. And I actually was at one point told the United States government, we collected funds for a sea turtle monitoring project, the nonprofit. I said, I can't account for those funds. We're killing the project. Ironically, they gave it to another organization, and that organization failed. So that's my goal, is to get out of the Chamber of Commerce business. That's the Chamber of Commerce, but to make sure that if we're overseeing funds that we collect, that we make sure that those funds are managed correctly. So I'm not sure where we go with that, but I like the second option, and I'd like to move that we kind of move in that area to figure out how stay out of the Chamber's business and just to reconstitute city control and over the BID and those funds, and to develop a new advisory board and structure so that those funds can be accounted for and spent in a legal way that meets the legal obligations of the establishment of the BID. So that's the motion that I'm putting out there and just I'm having.
The reason I suggested that there needs to be more of a structure is so that we don't have to be involved in the inner workings of the BID either. But there's a structure that's accountable, one that can submit the budget, account for the funds, be audited, etc., and audited around those 5 legal purposes for the collection of the bid assessment. We've had the discussion before about, and I used the word fiduciary. I used it incorrectly because we actually had a discussion back and forth with the city attorney that we really aren't fiduciaries for the assessment. But we do have a role that gets in the gray area of approving the budget. And as long as the chamber and the bid are together and half of that budget goes to the chamber, then we're still kind of in there. And this is kind of getting at your point. We follow the money. We can't really be separate the way you're articulating, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with that articulation. We'd really like to be out of this as much as possible, and still fulfill our public responsibility to make sure the funds go where they're supposed to go. And so I support the motion that we explore separation so that we can be clear about our responsibilities and not get caught up in what happens with the money that goes to the chamber, or whether it should, or how much there should be, and that sort of thing. We may not be there right away, but eventually that's where I hope this ends up.
Yeah, I don't know what I did with my, I'm not sure what I did to my little stamp here. So this advisory board, who is going to be on this advisory board?
I think the point is that even if over think here simply other procedural steps. But my argument is, I will never again support any approval of funds separate functions. Our business owners, and more importantly, the state of California, residents of Imperial Beach, can ensure that we have oversight. I think we've heard companies that hasn't happened. That's not the chamber's thing. The issue was from the very beginning, it was a marriage that possibly didn't work, and it's what's called they're a fiscal sponsor for an entity, and that has a conflict with the very mission of the chamber. So, but my concern more is that the city of Imperial Beach collects money. We're responsible for the oversight of that money legally, and I've always felt uncomfortable that somehow we don't have accountability over those funds, and we can't assure business owners that they've been expended correctly.
I completely agree with you with what you're saying there, as far as we have a responsibility, and I just, the implementation of this is going to be just separating these two organizations is easy. I mean, that can be done. Establishing a new board in our community is sometimes challenging.
We're not talking about establishing a new organization. We're talking about establishing a potentially new advisory board. That could be like a subcommittee. We could have a subcommittee of business owners and staff, council members that could oversee this, I think it'd be more controlled by the city with city staff issuing checks. For example, I think there's got to be a structure we can come up with, but my position is that it needs to be regulated and managed and with the oversight of the city of Imperial Beach if we're going to collect those funds legally. And frankly, as talked to people in BIDs and around other cities, everyone has problems with BIDs. We're not unique here.
But some communities use BIDs very well too.
And they're separate.
Yeah.
And they're always separate. They're separate.
Yeah, I agree there.
Right. I think that's the whole thing. They're separate entities and they develop their own regulatory structure. They have executive directors.
I can support. Second.
You must be.
I did. The Business Improvement District is under the umbrella of the Chamber of Commerce. So for the Chamber of Commerce to say, we do all their work, we do everything for them, but to say, well, we don't want to have anything to do with them, it's a little strange. And quite honestly, when the Business Improvement District was being considered, the business community was adamant. They wanted the city to have nothing to do with it. They didn't want the city telling them how to spend the money. They just wanted far away from the city, because there will be times, and we should see it more often, quite honestly, from the Chamber of Commerce. We discuss some very pertinent issues for the business community, whether it's lifting parking restrictions or easing parking restrictions or zoning, or all of these issues. And quite honestly, the Chamber of Commerce needs to be at the table when we're making those decisions. So, and so does the Business Improvement District. So, the creation of a new board, I can tell you that new board needs to be BID assessee. That's who it needs to be. Clear, plain and simple. Not a subcommittee of who knows who really doesn't know what it's like to be a business owner of a brick and mortar business, and that's what we're talking about here, brick and mortar. Chamber of Commerce has other businesses. They have SDG&E, they have EDCO, they have home-based businesses, but the Business Improvement District is an organization for like-minded and like-experienced owners. So their issues are very different than a home-based business. So, and that's part of the reason why that board needs to be just BID assessees. So I can support moving forward, experimenting on the separation. I feel like I'm a judge, and this is, I'm in divorce court, and I'm deciding what to do with the children. And unfortunately, it feels like this is my very own child. So I do take this very personally. However, I had said to City Manager Hall, I want to leave all my own personal feelings about this aside. But like I had said at the beginning, I'm not seeing documentation from 51 businesses, either yes or no. So I am going to need to see that.
Yeah, I think we can clarify. I think what we're hearing is for us to go out and explore. Again, I don't know that any official action is taken, because you guys don't need to separate them. That they have their own organization. You've asked us to go out and explore what a separate advisory board would look like. That, and what I'm hearing, that would include either a majority or totally assessees that are being.
That's not what I'm asking at all. I don't want city staff to spend any time on this. This needs to come from the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District. You tell us what your board should look like, or that board should look like, or they should tell us. This is not our job.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think the Business Improvement District needs to have, again, like I'm going to be very clear, at least from my perspective, I think the staff can come up with some suggestions, possibly work with the chamber, but I think we're talking about a divorce and making sure that there's some sort of structure in which we have control. We work with BID members, people who are paying to that fund, and possibly there's a subcommittee, and maybe Councilmember Bragg, you're on that to come up with a structure. I think we can keep it simple. Mike,
she can never get away.
My concern is that we get out of the telling the Chamber of Commerce business, telling them what to do business, and more importantly, fix the BIDs so that there's accountability, there's oversight, and that money that is collected from business owners is spent in a legal manner that's consistent with the law or the ordinance that started it. So,
and Mr. Mayor, let's look at what some of the successful bids have done and how they're structured.
You just need to look at Little Italy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
That's a great
I'm
one.
sure that's one, and maybe there's some others.
Yeah, it's the BID.
Encinitas, got a good one.
Yeah, so, okay, good. All right, well, we're in agreement. I think we're not talking about any laws here. We're just talking about directing staff to move forward on this process. And first, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. What our members did tonight was pretty courageous, and that's to acknowledge the need to change. As someone who runs a nonprofit, and now we work all together in the city, change is hard, and evaluating and being honest about where things are and where they need to go is hard. It's really, really hard. So I want to thank you guys for coming out today and having this honest discussion. This has been, it's tough. And these are longstanding institutions, and everybody's trying to do the right thing. And it's been really refreshing again to hear some great feedback. And for folks who are trying to do the right thing, are all unpaid. And so I think we're going to come out of this stronger. And the more that we can do this in this community, which is to evaluate and look at how we can do things better for all. And we all have to compromise, and it's not easy, as we know. That's awesome. That's democracy at its finest. So again, thank you very much, everybody, for doing that. And hopefully this will help everyone, especially the business owners who are getting assessed those fees as well.
I would just like to add one more thing. I would like from the city attorney's office description on how this would how would you dissolve this, because that's not here either. So I'm not sure what legal steps would have to be taken to do if they were to dissolve the business improvement district, or
we're talking about dissolving the business improvement district. We're just the city is going to take the steps to select a new advisory board, because this Chamber of Commerce has been selected as the advisory board, and then there's an agreement related to the administration of the funds. So the agreement would be terminated, and the council would need to adopt a new resolution appointing a new or creating a new advisory board, or essentially designating an advisory board. The law says you have to have an advisory board, but it can be some already existing board, it can be a new board, etc. So there are going to be steps that are going to take, and it may not be an overnight step that we take, and there will be more actions coming back to the city council.
I understand that. That's why I asked for that. There may be members of this community who say, I just want to dissolve it. I want to be able to say, this is what you have to do to dissolve it.
Right. And so dissolving it, again, it's the city council has the authority to dissolve it. And so you go through a notice and a public hearing and adoption of an ordinance, etc. So I think if that's something that the business owners want to promote, then they would probably submit some comments to the city council to say, please disestablish us. Because I think at this point, you don't have a ton of people saying disestablish. You have two parties that are, one says disestablish, or I think everybody's in agreement not to disestablish now that's here tonight. I don't know. But that is a process the city council could go through too, on totally disestablishing so that the funds are not collected anymore. Once you disestablish, it's done, and the fees will no longer be collected.
Thank you. And if you could take back to the BID board that we had asked, for a business plan, we had asked for the minutes, we had asked for a lot of things, and then also, and we haven't had in front of us in a while. I can't remember the last time where we had their budget as well. So as the umbrella organization for this organization, if you could carry that message back to them, that there are a few things that we were asking for. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're wrapping it up, right? Good. Okay, there's the vote. I mean, there's the motion
Direction.
out there. And we gave direction. We need to vote?
I don't think you need to vote, because
Okay.
as we said, this isn't final action. I think we've gotten the direction from a majority.
Great. Awesome. During the regular meeting.